All right. Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. Oh, Peter's been traumatized.
Not traumatized. You can't traumatize me anymore. It's been 25 years.
Before the show,
me.
we had some off mic Rhea conversations.
No,
so
we're not doing that. Hit the intro.
But yeah, we're here for the penultimate book club for 2024. I have to pause myself and not say 2025 because I've been doing so much 2025 work in the last little bit. Now it's just starting to come natural. So the second to last episode, book club for this year is today. And then basically the way that we'll talk about it as the episode starts because we've covered it last time, but we'll cover it here as well. So let's go ahead and hit the intro and get started.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, but not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland to the Dark Tower came.
We are content, one from many. Let the palaver begin.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's magnum opus, The Dark Tower series, and the extended Stephen King universe, because all things serve the tower. My name is Tad.
And I'm Peter, and I'm going to throw up.
I threw some fun stuff at Peter, which maybe that'll pop back up in the episode.
Unfortunately, it's going to. I know it is.
Who knows? But yeah, we're here for the penultimate episode of our book club of 2024. We are, and see, even on my screen, I've got on my next slide, I got 2025, so it's just throwing me off here. Got to make sure I say 2024. So yeah, we have two more book clubs, this one and one more, and the rest of the year, it basically, because of staggering it for the year-end bash, we are basically going every other episode, book club roundtable. Now we're in line for it now. Normally, we would do a second book club next time. It's what we've been doing the last few times when we have 3 episodes in a month. But this time we decided to flip it for a round table. So, yeah, basically just going every other the rest of the way through the year. So, can't wait to finish up 2024 strong and move into 2025, hopefully with some good Flanagan news. That's always the hope going into a new year. It's always this time of year that we've had big news recently. Yeah. Either things not getting picked up or Flanagan getting the rights. Those are all in like the November to February block of time. So, let's go ahead and jump on into the introductions. First of all, we have no spoilers in this episode, except for the very, very tail end of the episode. We will have a warning before we get into that. But in these episodes, we stay where we're at or before. We don't jump ahead. So if you haven't finished the series, this is a safe place for you to listen. Unless, of course, you are further behind than we are. Then I don't know why you would have clicked on this episode. That would be foolish of you. But if you are potentially perhaps midway through book 5, this would be a very safe episode. Until the spoiler warning. At that point, you can turn off the episode and come back to it at a later point. Next up, if you want to find the show, you can find us on Apple Podcasting. You can stream us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, or you can find us on any podcasting service of your choice if you like the old school method, which I tend to. In some ways, some podcasts I've converted to Spotify, if nothing else, and I like the Spotify year-end in review things, and it actually does podcast things. I think a couple of years ago, I did it where I only listened to one show on Spotify. It was, I don't even know why I did. I think it was probably just because I was like, had Spotify up so often. And then the year-end recap, it's like, your number one podcast was this. And it was literally a singular podcast. And it's like, and I don't think I listened to more than an episode or two that year, but it's like, I'm like, all right, but I still haven't converted my full way over into Spotify. I still use another podcast catcher. So
Yeah.
then you could also find us over here at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver if you want to watch all of our previous episodes since we've done live streaming on YouTube here, or if you want to join us live, like we have a couple people in the chat now that you can find us over here at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver, and of course subscribe, ring the bell for notifications to save us from lightning teeth from Blaine, because he will destroy us, and we all know that North Central Positronics owns Google and YouTube and Facebook and all these evil organizations on the internet. We all know they're North Central Positronics. It's either that or Skynet, right? And who's to say Skynet and North Central Positronics aren't the same thing?
I mean, different level of the tower, right?
Yeah, indeed. And then if you want to find the show notes, you can do that at darktowerpalaver.com. We don't have show notes for our book club episodes, but for our roundtable episodes, all the book clubs, or all the notes, the show notes are over there, as well as our questions for new listeners and our March Insanity stuff, which I'll be talking about here in just one second. Then if you want to support the show, you could do that at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. With that, you get access to our monthly hangouts, which we have coming up next time, because we didn't do it this time.
Yeah, life's been a little bit crazy.
Yeah, it's I didn't even think about it until I think it was late last night when I was like, oh shit, yeah it's been chaos and mayhem. It's end of the year nonsense. So we'll do it next time. But then you'll have access to our Discord server where you can chat with us all the time. That's always a lot of fun. Like in the chat here, we got some emojis. Definitely love that.
A wizard in a glass.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And then if you want to, that's the Patreon. And then also, I do want to throw it up on the screen before Peter gets to his stuff. We do have March Insanity 2025 has now been announced. Just a reminder for everyone, we are doing 2 brackets from now on. We are doing a Dark Tower bracket and a non-Dark Tower bracket, so the rest is Stephen King. The Dark Tower bracket this year is favorite spoken line in the Dark Tower series. The first ever non-Dark Tower King bracket is most hated non-Dark Tower character. So you basically have till the end of the year to send in your nominations. You can email those. You can send them on social media, which Peter will tell you in just a second. You can comment them on this video. What we'll do is at the very end, pretty much on New Year's Day, I'll go through everything I've got from all aspects to contact us. I'll compile it all into a giant list, and then the ones that get the most nominations the top 16 will end up being the 16 in the bracket. So that is how you, or I guess, so you can have more than one nomination if you want to nominate 16 or 23 or 19. It doesn't matter. You can nominate as many as you want, and don't worry if you see somebody else in the comments that already nominated something that you want, because the multiple people nominating it could be the difference between it making the poll and not. So you have till the end of the year to throw in those nominations, and we will reveal the bracket early next year, and then March 1st it will begin. So that is March Insanity 2025, as well. Peter can do the contact stuff, and then we can also talk about episodes for next year as well.
Yeah. So like Ted said, you can email us. It's show@darktowerpalaver.com. And then changing things up, we have a Threads now. It's the same as our Instagram, so Dark Tower Palaver, all one word, no spaces. I just realized my lens cover is down a little bit. I don't know if it was obstruction or anything.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I didn't notice it.
I just glanced up and I was like, uh-oh. But yeah, so Threads and Instagram are the same thing.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But Threads is kind of like a Twitter side of Instagram. But it's the same username, Dark Tower Palaver, all one word, no spaces. So you can find us on both Threads and Instagram under that username. And then we got our Blue Sky account. It's @darktowerpalaver.bsky.social.
And I will say, I have been getting so many notifications for people following us on Blue Sky in the last week or so.
And being demoted now is Twitter @DarkTowerPod. That's @DarkTowerPod. And we'll see how long we keep that one.
I'll stick with it till the ship sinks. I don't really I'm not on there a lot anyway, but so I will stay on there for those that do like Twitter. It doesn't bother me to jump on there and post Dark Tower stuff. Yeah. So don't worry about it until it goes down in flames, which is always a possibility.
It's a possibility with Elon running it. So, and then Facebook.com/DarkTowerPalaver for our Facebook. And then check out our merchandise. It's tpublic.com/users/DarkTowerPalaver. Get yourself a #TadIsTerrible official sticker and coffee mug and a pillow to cuddle with.
You can get the classic logo too, the one that doesn't,
It's not slander. Don't call it slander.
Besmirches my
besmirching.
Besmirch my good name.
It is what it is, sir. You are evil.
Oh, I don't know about that.
It's true. What you said earlier just proves it.
Oh, what did I say I was going to get to after you
Sanity.
No. We talked about in March Sanity, but we did look at the calendar.
Oh, the calendar.
For 2025, and it is actually a kind of a unique one. The last couple years, it's basically kind of worked out to where we basically just kept going every other week, and it lined up just right. But we always have to pick a specific set of weeks, because if we do one week, we end up hitting all the holidays. But if we do it the other week, we miss them all. So we always have to.
Like this year, our next episode is the week. Is it before Thanksgiving? After Thanksgiving?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure. It will be after, because it's the 30th.
Yeah, and then our episode, it's lining up that way a little bit this year, but next year it's even worse because Christmas is getting closer to the end of the week instead of the middle of the week. So I think that may have been part of why we didn't make a change this year. But yeah, looking at it, it is looking like we are going to have to make a little bit of a change next year.
Which, if you've been with the show long term, you know that's kind of not unusual. A lot of times we had to kind of figure out where the episode started, and it was always kind of different. It's just been really weird the last 3 or 4 years. It seems like we just kind of was able to keep holding it every other week, and it kept lining up perfectly. But that has now broken, so we will be starting. Technically, it'll have to be it would normally be the 4th and the 18th of January, but because the 4th is literally a week after the year-end bash, we are actually going to just cancel that episode and start on the 18th, which means we only have one episode in January next year. But then from there, we'll be every other week all the way through the year. I believe we've done that before too. It's been a while, but 5 or 6 years ago. But there was a time that had to happen too. But I just doing right in the midst of the holidays, doing 2 shows a week apart, that is not feeling,
especially like the week of Christmas and the week of New Year's, doing 2 shows. It's like, there's a lot of stuff with holidays and family and stuff like that is happening. So we're just like,
and drinking,
and that is Tad's family. So
me and Jack Daniels, we're very close.
You guys get each other gifts every year.
Yes, indeed. But yeah, so that'll be the schedule next year. Just so know, the year-end bash, and then the 18th of January. So that's a couple. I think that's 3 weeks between those episodes rather than the normal fortnight. But that is by design. And like I said, that'll technically lose us an episode for next year. But that is how it is lining up. So cool. That is everything. The housekeeping stuff. So let's go ahead and jump.
All right, thanks for coming, guys.
Jump on over into the Rhea of the whole thing. So we are currently in Wizard and Glass. I actually didn't do my calculation this time, so I don't know. I know we're past the 50% mark now, though, so it feels like
we hit about 50% last time, is what you said.
Yeah, so I think it was just over 50%. So we're past that now. Now to me, it almost feels like it's kind of like when you have your 18th birthday, you kind of just don't pay attention until you're 21.
Yeah.
And then if you're super nerdy, you wait till you're 25 when you can actually rent a car and your insurance rates go down.
Yeah.
But beyond that, you don't really, and it kind of feels that way. Like maybe when we get to like the 75% mark, we can be a little bit more excited. But right now, we're just into the minutia.
We're just cruising along.
We are cruising along, but we're going to be bogged down between that 50 and 75% mark before we probably do the calculations again.
Yeah,
but
we're like Susanna on Blacktop. We're just rolling.
Yes, indeed. Baraki can't spell diarrhea without Rhea.
Oh God. It's not as bad as what Tad said earlier, but it's still bad.
Oh, it'll come back, sir.
I know.
So we are currently in part 3, which is titled Come Reap. That is the subtitle for chapter 3, or part 3. And because there's 4 parts to this book, we are in the 3rd of the 4 parts, and we are currently in chapter 2. And just like chapter 1, all of chapter 2 is going to fit in this episode, which is really handy. That won't last beyond today, though. But it is kind of nice that the interlude in chapter 1 was an episode, and now all of chapter 2 will be an episode.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
It's nice, but then that doesn't last. So let's go ahead and jump into chapter 2, which is Girl at the Window is the subtitle for chapter 2. And jumping on into subchapter 1. And then, last time we had a lot of Roland and Susan's addiction to each other, I guess. They're madly in love.
Like kind of like the fallout from that, where Cuthbert and Alain start having conversations about Roland. Yeah. And then we saw Jonas and Reimer having a conversation that was interrupted by DePape and Reynolds expressing their concerns. And Jonas said he's going to go take a look around the barquet, and then something happened that we're not going to talk about because...
Oh, we have to talk about it, because then we also had a Rhea chapter. So... And I can just give you a spoiler right now. Rhea is in this episode, so everyone could be happy.
Disgusting.
I love that juicy noise at the end there. That
No.
just
Just stop. Just stop.
Oh, Subchapter 1. Let's go ahead and jump on in. So the Huntress Moon now, quote, filled her belly, as the old timers said, and she could still be seen in the sky at noon. In front of businesses like the Traveler's Rest and on the porches of the ranch houses like Langel's Rocking Bee and Renfrew's Lazy Susan, stuffy guys were set out. They wore sombreros and carried baskets full of produce and looked out onto the world with their stitched white-crossed eyes. I think we need stuffy guys in our world.
White Cross Eyes. That's a good name for a band.
Yeah, it's true. Stuffy guys, too.
Stuffy Guys.
It's a good name for a band.
Yeah. There should be a girl band.
I feel like Stuffy Guys should be like a hipstery, like Mumford & Sons type band, you know?
You know what came to mind for me is Hootie and the Blowfish. Kind of band, you know, like Stuffy Guys.
Yeah, something. And then squash-filled wagons clogged the roads. The sides of the barns were painted with orange of pumpkins and the magenta of sharproot. Potato carts with pickers following close behind scoured the fields. Reap charms now dangled from the guardians in front of the mercantile like wind chimes. All across Mages, girls were sewing their reaping night costumes, and in parentheses says, and sometimes wept over them when it went badly. As they dreamed of the boys that they would be dancing with, their brothers began to have trouble sleeping as they anticipated carnival rides, games, prizes to be won. Even the elders sometimes lost sleep in spite of their sore hands and aching backs as they thought of the pleasures of reap. And I don't know, they don't fill in the blanks there of what the elderly people's pleasures might be, but we can only imagine.
Glug glug.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, that's going to be some of them, right? Like,
yeah,
that's what they live for is the mead.
Yeah, and then I've got a direct quote from the book here. Summer had slipped away with the final flirt of her green gown. Harvest time had arrived. So this feels apropos because I feel like we're pretty much right in that season right now. Maybe a little bit past it.
Yeah, we brought this up last episode that it was like talking about like the rains were coming and everything like that, and sure enough, it comes up like it's like perfect for what's happening here right now.
Yeah, exactly. Dirty Mike says there was a local band in my town called Lobstrosities.
Oh shit!
You just got to keep your fingers in fists.
I like that the autocorrect called it Lobster Cities.
That's a good band.
I'm gonna Lobster Cities.
That's a good band name too. Although I just feel like that's just a band that all their songs are about crustaceans and living under the sea.
You're gonna get the claw.
Lobster Cities, that's great. Okay, so then my notes here. What a way for King to paint the picture here, not really showing us what Reap looks like. Not only really showing us what Reap looks like, but really making us feel this time leading into Reap all across the town.
Yeah.
It's just nice. I don't know. King just is painting very lovely. Is painting in a beautiful way about what this all looks like across the way. I almost feel like you could see this like a camera, going across the town, seeing all these things.
Oh,
It just feels like you could envision it all. I don't know what the hell a sharproot is, but I can imagine magenta. So
is it a yam?
I don't know.
I wonder if it's like an actual thing or if that's a made up thing for.
You made that word up.
All words are made up.
Also, I love seeing the moon during the day. That's interesting in our world, so it's cool to see it here as well. That always, geeked me out as a kid when you could see the moon during the day. I remember asking some elementary teachers when I was a wee lad, why that was a thing, and of course, not a lot of answers. Because I don't think I ever had any elementary teachers that were like, because with a lot of elementary teachers, you can kind of tell that like if they were in a higher grade, you could tell what class they would be teaching.
Yeah.
I just don't think I had a lot of teachers that would have been science teachers.
No.
They were all like English and math type teachers for the most part, till 6th grade. Then I had one that was literally a gym teacher. You could just tell that's what my teacher was. And it was painful to see him try to teach shit.
Yeah, like them reading is like...
Yeah. But then when we had like our free time area where he would like go out and do like the phys ed stuff, ours was better than all the other kids in the grade. But when it came to him, I remember one of my favorites was when he was trying to tell us like where you walk on the street. Like, do you walk against traffic or with traffic?
Yeah.
And he started telling us definitively, I don't remember which way, that you always go against traffic so you can see the cars coming towards you. And he's like, wait a minute, maybe it's the other way around. So to this day, I still actually don't know what the true.
You're supposed to walk against traffic and ride with traffic if you're like on a bike or something like that.
So it's just one of the funniest.
Because you're technically like a vehicle. So like if you're a bike, you follow the rule. Shocker for all people who are cyclists, you still follow the rules of the road, like stop signs and street lights and whatnot.
Yeah.
You're not immune to those.
Yeah,
but
but
yeah,
it-
walking. Yeah, you are absolutely supposed to walk towards traffic.
And it was just funny because he just like in the middle of this thought, just
Wait.
like maybe I'm wrong. It's the other way. And he was just this old man. So it's just that's the kind of teacher that I had in sixth
Yeah.
grade. So yeah, that's my notes though. What do you got?
I love seeing the kids lose sleep over Reap. It just makes me think of like Christmas because that's always like the one holiday for like us growing up that was like, oh my god, I can't wait. You know, like you would get excited. Like you'd hit this time of year, like mid-November. That's where we're at right now. Like it's literally the 16th of November when we're recording this, and it's like right about now is when kids really start to get
Because you
excited.
start to get your holidays off of
Yeah.
school. So like you got Thanksgiving coming up that's going
Yep.
to take out
And-
a
yeah,
half a week.
exactly, and then like you hit that, and you're just like, Christmas is coming.
Yeah, I will say my excitement also was for the 4th, and here or where I lived is West Valley at the time. We had a thing called West Fest.
Yeah.
that was very carnival-ish like this.
Yes.
So I remember that too, just being excited. Like one, I get to play with fireworks. I still have all 10 fingers, and then
Do it responsibly if you're going to do it.
including when you cobble fireworks together into mutant fireworks, and still all 10 fingers.
Don't
so.
do that.
Hey, all 10 fingers.
Don't do
So
Don't do that.
one of my favorites is we spent.
Kids might be listening to this, Tad. Tell them not to do it.
Dude, so we ended up getting like I think I ended up spending like $20 on snaps, and just imagine like back in the 90s how many snaps that was.
That's a lot of snaps.
And then we went and we meticulously went and unraveled them all, and
Good
then we
Lord.
got it into a piece of newspaper. Dude, we ended up getting almost the size of a baseball, and when I threw that thing down, dude, it sounded like a 357 going off.
That's awesome.
So that's the kind of things I like to do. I mean, among other things, that was probably the safest that I ever did.
Yeah, we're not going to go into the other thing. Yeah, I just don't think I ever lost sleep over any other holiday except for Christmas. Like,
Yeah.
So just kind of showing like how big Reap is like.
Yeah.
This isn't the first subchapter where King's also talked about the Reap and how the town's feeling and getting excited for it and everything. So, just kind of interesting to see like King's kind of building this up a little bit.
Yeah, and then Dirty Mike says that's how I first learned about the Dark Tower series. Is that band?
Oh,
So
interesting.
that's pretty cool. That's
Lobster
awesome.
Cities.
That's awesome. I mean, I always knew it because of the King realm, but I do remember, like, out of high school, the first job, I knew there were some people that were into it, and they would like listen to it at work on like audio, like and stuff. So I'd always hear
Yeah.
bits and pieces even before I dove into. Well, no, I'd read it by that point, so I'd always hear it, and I'd be like, oh yeah, they're listening to book 4 right now or whatever. So
Yeah.
it was always fun.
And so nothing happens in subchapter 2, so we'll skip to subchapter 3.
Oh no, sir. We must join Rhea.
So Rhea didn't care for the reaping festivities, but she lost sleep like the others. Most nights she laid on her pallet until dawn, her skull thudding with rage. One night, long after Jonas and Reimer talked to the Traveler's Rest, she decided to drink herself into oblivion, only to find that her gaff barrel was almost empty. She swore loudly. As she drew breath in, she had a wonderful, brilliant idea. She wanted Susan to cut her hair off, and it hadn't worked, and she didn't know why. But she did know something very interesting about the girl, didn't she? I just stopped right there. Uh-oh.
And so she's pretty much been in a rage since that all happened because Musty screwed everything
Yeah,
up
she
in
threw
her
him
mind.
into the fire.
Yeah, because
Not only did it not happen, but she doesn't know why it didn't
Doesn't know
happen.
why, 'cause Musty
Because
interrupted.
Musty interrupted. The glass went dark.
she got angry, which caused the glass to go dark, and ever since then, it seems it stayed dark.
It hasn't worked very well.
Yeah, so that's kind of the root of her anger there.
Yes,
so.
exactly.
Yeah. My note, I kept thinking Shimi was going to be the danger. We mentioned it a number of episodes ago, but once Rhea's plans were foiled and she saw it, I knew that she was a ticking time bomb. I mean, she saw the lovemaking, not necessarily why it didn't happen. If there
The
was
hair cutting off why it didn't happen.
Yeah,
is what you
exactly. If there is one thing which are good at, it's sowing unrest and chaos.
mean. Yep.
So I just, now suddenly it's shifted from like, oh, Shimi's going to slip and let something loose in front of the wrong person. But, now it's a matter of Rhea, because it's like, okay, does she tell Thorin, which could be devastating? Should she tell Cordelia? Oh, my God, what would that fucking do?
Yeah.
There's just so many things that she could do that it's just like,
What if she goes to Jonas with this? That's who brought her the ball.
yeah, I mean.
Wouldn't that be like an obvious choice? Is like, hey, by the way, that ball? Yeah, it showed me this, by the way. I thought you might want to know. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there's no good can come of this.
Yeah.
So I just remember kind of
Ooh. Exactly. So Rhea had no desire to go to Thorin. Well, there's that one. Check that one off. She had a fond and foolish hope that the mayor had forgotten the glass. Oh, so she doesn't want to remind him of that.
Yeah.
But suppose the girl's aunt was to discover that not only did her niece lose her virginity, but the girl was on her way to becoming a practiced trollop. Rhea didn't think Cordelia would go to the mayor either. There came a wow from Musty, who was looking at Rhea with a mixture of hope and mistrust. Rhea, grinning, called the cat to her. Musty, understanding all was forgiven, rushed into her arms and began to purr loudly. Rhea licked along his sides with her old yellow tongue, and that night the coo slept soundly for the first time in a week. The next morning, when she looked into the ball, took the ball into her arms, its mist cleared at once. On top of everything else that Jonas and Raymer were talking about last episode, now this too just literally piles right on top of that.
Yeah, indeed. Again, never mess with witches. And then also her licking the cat.
Gross. Gross. Don't lick a cat. Just don't.
It seems like there's an innuendo built in there.
Yeah, a little bit. We're not going to talk about it. But I do find it's interesting that Rhea being like that super upset is what clouded the ball.
Oh, yeah.
Because like we were kind of talking about it. I don't know if it was last time or the time before. It's like the ball kind of gives off like a sentient vibe.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's just like reacting to her emotions.
Yeah.
Kind of like confirming what we were talking about. It's like, oh, well, there's
Yeah.
it's cleared up now, so it's good.
very One Ring-ish in
Yeah.
that like sentient nature almost. Although,
Yeah.
the Lord of the Rings also has the Palantirs, which, with that, it was always more the danger of they don't know where they're all at, so you don't know what you're broadcasting to.
You don't know who's watching from the other side.
But they're not necessarily, but it's almost like the One Ring mixed with the Palantir, where it's like it has its own mind.
Exactly.
So, indeed.
So going on, Rhea spent the day spying on people that she detested, not drinking or eating until around sunset. She realized she hadn't done her idea yet. But that was all right because she knew how it could be done and she could watch the results in the glass. She would see all the fallout and, most importantly, Susan's tears. A little harvest of my own, she said to Ermont, and...
Read it.
Dad's enjoying this way too much. Ermont slithered between her legs to the place that she liked him best. There weren't many men that could do what Ermont did. Sitting with a lap full of snake, Rhea began to laugh.
Disgusting.
So gross. Tad's okay. I'm going to give a little peek behind the curtain here. So we divvy up the subchapters. It's usually random which way we go. I just happen to fall on this one. So I do the summary and then I put my notes in first. Tad does his subchapters, then comes back through and puts his notes in my subchapters. In here on the document, I put that is so gross. That's my note. That's exactly word for word how it says. Below that, Tad's first note is literally in all caps. Ha 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 ha.
Because I knew I would be laughing.
Oh.
It's so funny.
You didn't have to put a note for it. You're so vile.
That's where my comment before we went on the air.
Don't subject them to it, Tad. Just don't.
I told Peter it gives new meaning to the old historic phrase, the Fertile Crest.
God.
Oh, man, I love it so much.
I want to go home.
And hey, King loves it too. We all know he has that 5-year-old boy's sense of like, look at a booger, and like, you creep everyone out. King just has that in him, so I'm going to say it's not me being evil. Baraki snakes. Why'd it have to be snakes?
Yeah. And he also, Dirty Mike does the puke emoji. Yeah, I tend to agree.
Let's see. And then my note, also, yeah, it seems we're in for some trouble here. Is shit going to come to a head a lot sooner than we suspected? We've been kind of talking about the countdown to Reap.
Yeah.
And, like, it seems like that's when the coffin hunter shit's going to go down. And so you assume that's probably when everything's going to come to a head. But it's like, suddenly now you got a wild card of a witch. Like, does that mean that all of our timelines are blown up and suddenly, like, we've been kind of confident where it's like, okay, we still got, like, a month left or whatever.
Yeah.
Does that suddenly mean that, oh, shit, no, something's going to happen a lot sooner because now she's got some ideas in her mind?
Well, it just seems like things are going sideways real fast because even last time, Jonas and Reimer were talking about maybe it's time that he goes out and pokes his nose around at the bar, "Hey, where the boys are staying."
Yeah.
And so it's just like,
And he guessed what that would be there.
yeah,
He knew-
he guessed that it would be some kind of messaging sending thing, including
Pictures
pigeons,
of their mom,
pictures of their moms and stuff like
and
that,
then guns.
and then guns. So it's just like, shit, like that's way too on the nose.
And where the guns would be.
exactly
Probably
where they
guns
would
under
be.
the floorboards.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just like, we have that last time, and now we got Rhea this time getting her ball back and fixed, and also has a plan to deal with Susan that's going to end with her in tears. That's not going to be good. That's not going to be good.
Yeah, no.
Like-
And it just makes me nervous because I feel like King's kind of giving us this ticking clock into a point that can almost undercut your drama a little bit because, like, you know, if for sure it's like, hey, we got a movie that's set over the course of a week, and at the end of the week is the fucking climax of the movie.
Is the bomb going
You know,
off?
so middle of the story when you're on Wednesday, like there's not as much drama there
Yeah.
when you know that, like, so you've got to add other stuff in, and I just feel like the wild card of a witch is the perfect kind of thing to like kind of make us all doubt, like, hold on a second, do we truly have until Reap, or is shit gonna go sideways on this level first with all the Coffin Hunter shit coming
Yeah.
at Reap still? You know,
Yeah,
like,
you're-
is it going to be
you're-
a cascading
what
effect of
what I'm thinking of is like, there's a bank heist that's planned for Friday. That's when the money truck shows up, and that's when the deposits all happen. So that's when you're going to rob it, right? And so all the stuff that can go wrong is going to happen on Friday.
Yeah.
And here we are on Wednesday, and a guy breaks his leg, and another guy has a heart attack, and another guy, you know, gets locked up because he punched a guy at a bar the night before. You know,
Yeah.
Shit's going sideways when
Yeah.
it's not supposed to be going sideways.
not yet, exactly.
Not yet. And so it's just like, shit.
Yeah, so it definitely makes you nervous, but look at that, we got through it. We got through the subchapter there.
I need a drink and a shower.
Oh, I love the indie line, Baraki, and
Yeah.
Mike. I think the emoji is perfect there. So, and I love emojis too because Peter doesn't like them. So, makes me like them even more. Kind of like clowns. Clowns are happy, jovial creatures, but the fact that everyone's so scared of them just makes them more, you know, endearing to me.
You're
So.
just hashtag Ted is terrible. You're just the worst.
So moving on to subchapter 3 here. Alain reminds Cuthbert of his promise to keep his temper as they hear Rusher's hoofbeats approaching. And I stopped right there and I said, "Here we go." Just in one sentence, we get the idea we're in for a confrontation. Like,
Yeah.
you can't have that exchange without knowing that, like,
Oh shit.
yeah, they're about to go 10 rounds
and
with
it's
Roland.
like, and it's like, we literally just got done having the Reimer Jonas conversation. Now Rhea, and now they're gonna fight. Like, oh shit! Like,
Yeah.
again, this goes back to my analogy of like the bank heist. Everything is going wrong, one after the other. Like,
Yeah.
shit. Here we
Yeah,
go.
Exactly. Baraki says in the audiobooks the narrator speaks that part of Rhea's voice and it makes it so much worse. Yeah, Frank Muller's Rhea voice is pretty great. I can't wait to see Rhea on screen because I just have a feeling it's going to be glorious. Do you think we're going to get a shot of Ermont going south of the border?
Just move on, Ted. Move on. Come on. Move on.
Oh, subchapter 3.
Move on.
Oh yeah, so that was the first note. I just had to pause there because it's like, holy shit, King hitting you with that first sentence essentially, which is an exchange between the two, and it's just like, whoa, what the fuck are we in for here? So Cuthbert agrees aloud but doubts it to himself. So that's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Also knowing that we were dealing with teenagers here, so not necessarily known for their being, you know,
clear-headedness.
yeah, clear-headed and logical. So Baraki LOL just to make Peter cringe. Yes, that is a happy thing for sure.
Making me cringe. You're the worst.
Oh, indeed. I mean, Scott's Tots. There's a reason that
God damn it,
gets
Ted.
brought up so much. Oh, dude, it's so great. And
I'm gonna go home. You're mean.
Randomly, I will just like text you pictures from
You
Scott's
do.
Tots too.
You do. It's so mean.
Because, like, I know that with one picture, I just flood the whole episode back to you. Like, it's just, it's like The Crow, you know, when he, like, touches the cop and gets, like, 19 hours of pain and suffering.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, 22 minutes of the Office episode just in 1 second gets, like, jammed into your brain. Like a Q-tip. So as Roland rode closer, his Cuthbert's fists clenched, and he had to will them open. As Roland dismounted, they clenched again, with his nails digging into his palms. Bert thinks here is another go-around and thinks that last night it had been about the pigeons again. He had wanted to send one back about the tankers, and Roland disagreed, so they had argued. Though most infuriating of all, Roland had not really argued. His eyes had held that distant look as if his body were present but not his mind, soul, spirit, or caw, because they were all with Susan Delgado. Roland had said it was too late for that, and Cuthbert argued that he couldn't know that, and even if it was too late to get help from Gilead, it wasn't too late for advice from Gilead. Roland in a flat voice answered, what advice could they give? Seeming oblivious to the rawness in Cuthbert's voice. Bert asked if they knew that they wouldn't have to ask, and Roland told them that they had to wait and stop them when they made their move, talking about the coffin hunters, and that Cuthbert wanted comfort, not advice. So Roland being the best kind of leader here, right? Just completely dismissive of the concerns of his underlings, if you want to call it that way. Bert thought silently to himself what he really meant is wait while Roland fucks Susan in as many ways and in as many places he could have imagined. Aloud, he said that Roland was not thinking clearly about this, and Alain gasped at that. Neither of them had ever said anything like that to Roland in their lives, and Alain awaited whatever explosion might follow. None did. Roland just flatly said, "Yes, I am," and went into the bunkhouse, or went to the bunkhouse. So, pausing here, King loves playing with time. In this series, we have seen it countless times. And here we see this argument from the night before, not as it happens, but as a memory of Cuthbert the next day, which is brilliant because then King can dive as deep into the argument as he wants without having to paint the entire scene out and have a beginning, middle, and end. You can kind of just cut in to a certain part of it and then cut back out to the current thing. It's genius writing, but it also
takes away the most important parts from that conversation the night before
to set the stage, right? Because it's like ultimately, if that had happened, but King didn't tell us, like this entire whatever's going to happen wouldn't have the same
impact,
or not even the same. It would not even necessary to say it doesn't have the same impact, but we wouldn't know the context enough to know that like this is coming on the heels of one the night before. So it's genius writing, and again, it just feels so on point for this series because, as you know, what did we start this series with? A flashback within a flashback within a flashback, was it?
Something like that, yeah.
So and it's gone throughout, because it's funny, if you would have asked me before doing these book clubs, like, hey, like, you know, how does the Dark Tower series play with time? You know, I would have thought about that from the beginning, but I wouldn't have given you much examples of other times where King kind of like did time in reverse, but like over the course of these book clubs, we've seen it in like every book. There's been examples of it where King is doing shit like not necessarily out of order, but he plays with time in an interesting way. And I think these book clubs have really been enlightening to me, where it's like, oh shit, it's not just the opening. Like he does it throughout, but that's just the most obvious because it's like one within another within another. It's like Inception.
It's very jarring because it's the only time that King really does like Roland remembering his visit to Brown, telling him about something, and in that one he's thinking about his childhood, like you said, like one within the other to the third or fourth power. That's the only real time that really happens, but going back one, maybe two, that happens all the time in this series.
It does, and it's just one of those things I don't think I had ever noticed until we started doing these book club series. Even in the course of this book, there's been a couple of them.
Like Baraki says, he does it huge in the first part of the first book. That's all that first part of Gunslinger is Roland remembering things.
But I think we have some of it with like Eddie in book 2. We have some of it in book 3. I don't remember examples, but it's like you just see it throughout. And I just think that King and I will say King.
There's one where they flash back to like finding Lord Perth's plane, right? Where it's like it had been 3 days since they found the plane, and it's like, wait, what? You know, like then it flashes back.
And then I will say too, like I think King likes doing that because like I can think of examples in The Stand, but he usually cages it differently. In The Stand, it's like, you know, Franny reading the diary or reading Fran's diary. There's times that you then you jump ahead a while, and then a little while later you go back to Fran's diary and it fills in a bunch of the blanks that you skipped.
He does it almost every chapter in the first part of The Stand. Because like Larry pulling up in New York to his mom's building,
Yeah.
And he just remembers everything that happened
Yeah.
that led him there.
And it's jumps all over. So I will say I think King does like to play with time for sure, but I do think that it's more pronounced in this series than most of his other writings.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. It's also weird the first time I read this, and even on most rereads, I feel like I should see the logic of Roland's side here, I feel like my brain is usually like his brain in that if like I usually approach things in a non-emotional way, and I can think about things like you used to be shocked at some of my answers on zombie questions. And stuff, where I'm just like I execute the person, and you're like, what?
The only doctor you have with you is bitten. What do? Cut his head off and put 2 in the head.
Yeah.
What?
Like I don't care. Like that's.
And you're like, no, well, that's the answer.
Yeah, or if somebody has a family member that's bit, it's like cool. I shoot the family member, and then decide from there if the family member.
If they're going to be a problem.
If they're going to be a problem. If they are, they go with their kid or their mom or their whoever it is. Like that's just I've always kind of had that Roland mentality.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of interesting that in this case I'm not necessarily following him fully.
Even on rereads.
Even on rereads, yeah, because I'm just like I don't know if he's right. Like is he? Because I think what it comes down to is he truly right? And he's thinking logically, or is it that he's trying to think that way because of Susan?
Yeah.
Right. So there's just no way to to get through it.
It's the whole math question thing. Like you have to show your work kind of thing. Like he may be landing at the right answer, but is he landing at the right answer for the wrong reasons?
Yeah.
Or does he even have the right answer? That's kind of where we're at. It's like he might be right, but is he right for the right reasons? Or is he coming up with that because he just wants to keep doing what he's doing?
Yeah, exactly. But I couldn't really see his perspective because I was just as angry at Roland's delirious or dereliction of duty and betrayal of his friends as Cuthbert is here. He's neglecting his responsibilities because he's a teenager that's having sex, and like that's just inexcusable to me because it's like, yes, I get it, he's a kid and he's a teenager, but at the same time he's also a lifetime trained gunslinger and he's got his guns now and he's responsible for his friends. Like that, I can't even give him the break of like, oh, he's only 14. No, he's not. He's 14 in our world, but in his world, he's a gunslinger now.
Right.
So even if it's apprentice gunslinger, he's a gunslinger. So, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. It's weird, but I can't.
You have a certain level of responsibility when you win those guns from court. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
With it. My note here just goes along with that. It just shows how far gone Roland really is if he isn't even up for arguing with Bert.
Yeah.
Like, he's not even willing to, like, give him his time. Like you said, he was being very dismissive of it.
Yeah.
And his logic here is terrible. I hate that fucking line. What advice would they give?
Yeah.
Well, if we knew that, like Bert says, if we knew that, we wouldn't have to fucking ask.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what they're going to say. They could give us something that is very valuable.
Yeah.
But you're not going to know until you ask.
Yeah.
Like, and that's one thing that I think is a little bit different between me and you, because I could see you having that answer. Like, well, what are they going to say? But we don't know until we ask. But there's also the, like he says to Cuthbert, you want comfort, not advice.
Yeah.
And at the same time, yes, but also, how much easier is it to do something when you know 100% this is the right thing to do?
Yeah.
Cuthbert doesn't know that right now.
Yeah.
He has doubts.
Yeah.
And Roland's doing absolutely fuck all as a leader to alleviate those doubts.
Yeah. Which is bad leadership.
And that's where I have a problem with Roland. Is like, you can be as stone cold as you want and be as Terminator-ish as you want, Roland, but when your underling has doubts, it is your job to put them at rest, not just say, because I said so. That's what I get here, is that mentality. We grew up with this, that why do I have to do this? Because I said so. Because I'm the parent. Because I'm the teacher. Because I'm the principal.
Yeah.
You know? Do what I say.
Yeah.
And I hate that.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of those people. I'm like Bert here. Explain to me why, and then I'm more likely to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So watching Roland remove Rusher's saddle, he thought that Roland was not thinking clearly, but he had better think clearly about this. He greeted Roland with a heil and asked, so now we're back in the present. We've now, moved on from the last night argument.
Where Alain is telling him to keep his temper.
Yes, exactly. We're back I guess, I should say that, because theoretically we are in the middle of a flashback in a larger sense. But so we're back in the present of they're about to confront Roland, and Alain was trying to tell
Keep your cool, bitch.
yeah, you promised to keep her cool, so do it. So he agreed to roll with the Heil and asked if he was asked if it was a busy afternoon, and Alain kicked his ankle, but he ignored it. It does seem like kicking and kneeing and elbowing Cuthbert is a national pastime in Gilead, doesn't it?
It's an Olympic sport in Gilead. They get gold in it every year.
It really is. And I don't think we really get enough about Cuthbert's family. Do you think his dad's the same way?
No.
No?
I think Cuthbert's the oddity.
he's the one-off.
I mean, Henry wasn't like Eddie, so
yeah, that's true. But I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, that's siblings, not parent. But
yeah.
But Eddie's mom wasn't like that. So also, his dad is a full-fledged gunslinger for years.
But do you think
so.
he had it, and maybe he evolved out of it as he got older and more mature?
I don't think he's extreme. Like if Bert's dad has it, it's a 4, and Bert's a 10. That's what I. Bert's one of a kind,
and he is a 10. Let's be honest. He's the best. Baraki says, I always saw Roland as someone who felt he had the duty to act all cold like that, but who really wasn't that at all on the inside. It's like in terms of that he's more portraying a look than he actually has himself, and I think that's definitely in the text too. We've
with Hax the cook, you definitely
saw that, but we also saw the idea given to us in the last couple books where it's Roland is truly a more of a romantic at heart, and it's that's not the exterior you would have got from Roland in the first book, but it's
or even the second book. No,
and I mean yes, there's hints like Hax and stuff, but it's just I don't know. I do think there's an inner Roland that is different than the exterior. It's kind of the worn, tough and rug element of his outer nature is kind of, there's a disconnect between his internals. So Roland said simply that he was with Susan, no defense and no excuse. Cuthbert had a vision of shocking clarity of Roland and Susan having sex, and in his head he bemoaned why Roland always had to be first and cursed him for it. Cuthbert told him that he had been they had been on the docks counting boots and marine tools, and what an amusing time it had been. Roland asked if they had needed help with that, which I'm sure that's kind of a shitty attitude with that line there.
Just kind of throwing it back in his friend's face.
Yeah.
That's so shitty.
Yeah, and if that is why he sounded angry, so at least he's acknowledging the anger there. Bert tells him that it was that the fishermen are laughing at them behind their backs and think them all fools. Roland said it's good for them to think as such. Alain now chimed in saying chiming in saying maybe, but Reimer doesn't think that we're fools, and he said that he can see it in the way that he looks at them as they pass, nor does Jonas, and if they don't think the boys are fools, what do they think they are? Roland paused. They finally got through to him, at least in part. So that's interesting. So, it seems like that kind of picks up from our conversations that we saw with them, is there's a noticeable difference in how the kids are being clocked by the true traitors. I'm not going to say the treason isn't further in the town, but the core of the treason is the coffin hunters, Reimer, and Avery. I think we've kind of got the sense the mayor is kind of in the know, but I don't think he cares.
No, we got it last episode where it's more of a I'll take your money, but don't tell me any of the details.
He's more.
Oh, that's what they were doing. Oh my God, that's very politician.
But I don't think it's even necessarily the whole plausible deniability as much as he's up in the night. He's more worried about the kid he wants to have sex with, which is gross. But that's the truth of it, right? He's kind of so not to excuse him in any way, but I don't think that he's in the same. If there was a conspirators corner, I don't think he's invited to that meeting. So we've seen them all chat, and now it seems like the boys are clocking a different vibe from them. Yeah. So I would give them credit that even as 14-year-old boys, they're able to gauge that difference. Yeah. Because that's good, because you need to know that, right? If your enemy has changed how they're viewing you, it's good to know that. Yeah. So I'm so torn by this section. The first time reading, and frankly, every reread, I want to reach through the book and throttle Roland in my frustration with him here. But at the same time, I recognize the danger they are in. So this open discord among our very outnumbered boys does worry me, and it kind of makes me sad. Yeah. Because again, we know what's at stake here, and we know what kind of people are involved. our boys are outnumbered at their best. And now we're seeing this discord amongst them, and it's like, this only makes it worse, right?
Yeah, because we got confirmation last episode where the Reimer and Jonas talk in the Traveler's Rest, how deep it actually is.
Yeah.
Because we had questions before that. We were just talking about it, whether or not the mayor's even involved at all.
Yeah.
This could very well be Reimer doing it, puppeteering behind the strings, behind the mayor's back because the mayor is distracted.
Yeah.
We found out that the mayor is even involved, even if it's, in a distracted sort of way and everything.
Yeah.
And so we do know that how bad it is, but we don't know exactly. We don't know that it's 100 to 1 or 50 to 1 or 30 to 1. We do know that it's not 1-on-1. We do know, like you're saying, that they are outnumbered. They are very far from reinforcements. They are very far from any kind of help.
Yeah.
And it's just going to get worse,
and
too.
their kids.
And their kids. They're not even like full-blown gunslingers.
Yeah, even if they were like, 18, 19, 20-year-old gunslingers,
Yeah.
and they were all gunslingers, I'd feel maybe a little bit better, but it's like, no, we're dealing with like some 14-year-olds, and that's assuming the other two were even Roland's age. What if their birthdays fall differently and they're 13-year-olds?
Yeah, exactly.
That could very well be the case.
And it does kind of give off that vibe because Cuthbert's like, why is it always Roland? Why is he always first?
Yeah.
Is it because he is a few months older than them?
Yeah.
It very well could be. And then my note here, what makes me frustrated is Roland trying to be content that everyone thinks they're fools. But if he is thinking clearly, he would see that Alain is right. The Traveler's Rest showed the dangerous people, Jonas and Reimer, that they are not just dumb kids. They admitted that afterwards. Now, this is Roland hooking up with Susan.
Yeah.
So Roland admits there's no way that Jonas is ever, because Cuthbert says it, he means to fucking kill you.
Yeah.
Even if he shook your hand and said bygones is bygones and it's water under the bridge and all that other stuff, Cuthbert told Roland, that old motherfucker is going to kill you. He
Yeah.
is out to gut you like a fish.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden Roland's just like, no, it's good that everyone thinks we're fools. It's fine. It's like, dude, come on. You have to realize how wrong that is. And that's really where I get frustrated with Roland in this moment right here.
Yeah. Baraki says the narrator calls Roland a romantic in the first chapter of the first book, and that he regards himself as such. I guess that is true. Maybe there was something earlier on, but you don't really see much of it till later on.
Yeah,
When you
you're
actually
like,
start to
this
see-
is a romantic?
Yeah, yeah. Like early on, it just feels like, really? Like, dude just massacres a town in the next few chapters?
Well, not only
and-
that, but also like what he does to Sylvia Pittston can be like, oh my god, like he says it's a demon, but oh my god.
Yeah.
But then also he just beds Allie and is just like, meh.
Yeah, it's all very like matter of fact. Like I don't think there's even any passion
No.
involved. It's just it's
I have to do this every few months or otherwise
Yeah.
I go crazy kind of thing.
It's like drinking water, like in that early chapter, those early chapters where it's like
He doesn't need to.
Yeah, it's like that pleases him that he could just sit there and watch his body wither away.
Yeah.
and not drink. So like the Manny folk. And then Brock says this part feels the same as near the end of It, where the losers are fragmented and need to come back together in heart and mind in order to survive. Reoccurring theme. Yeah, and there's some other examples that I feel like I've just watched some stuff recently where like there's dissension sown amongst.
Oh, The Stand?
Well, just recently, I feel like there's something I've watched in the last couple of months where that was a thing where like the group of heroes start to like fight, and it's like somebody brings up like, hey, this is whatever it is, whoever it is wants.
Avengers.
Is they want us broken up.
Yeah,
And,
Avengers. That's Loki's plan. Like he splinters the Avengers. Hulk gets yeeted out of the ship. Who knows where Thor is? And everything. That's Avengers when the Battle of New York starts.
It happens all the time for sure, but yeah, no, it's a very common theme.
It's such a good storytelling thing though when all of them come together and you're just like, fuck yeah, here we go.
But I think what it does come down to a lot of times is it's like Roland and his fingers, right? If Roland has all of his fingers, like what the hell are the point of Eddie and Susanna and Jake? Like it doesn't matter. Like if Roland had all of his fingers and he could use both guns the whole way through the story as he did in that first book, like what's the purpose of anyone else? Like no one can touch this guy. But when you hobble him, now suddenly, and then he's poisoned, like he needs the help. And then it's like, cool, now he no longer can use both guns. Like he's never going to be his true self again. So it kind of puts him in a place where he needs,
the content.
it's good stuff. My note here, I will grant Cuthbert being wrong a bit, and it shows here. He carries some resentment towards Roland for always being first at everything. He envies it, and that is part of his anger. I still think the larger part is the right reasons to be mad, but it's being multiplied by this resentment, and that's not a good thing.
That's back to what I was saying. Like, you can be right, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing is, like, then you're wrong.
And resentment is like one of the that can kill like the best of friendships, you know. And like these guys, yes, they're friends, but there's also kind of that almost professional realm of like they were training gunslingers together.
Yep.
I think so that moves it beyond just friendship. And like if it can destroy like the best of friendships in like a normal peaceful time, like what could it do to people under fire, under stress in a battle zone?
Very dangerous
like,
situation.
Yeah, like it could be absolutely fatal for sure. So I do want to, as much as we all love Cuthbert, we all stand Cuthbert at this podcast. We do have to admit that he is wrong in that aspect.
Yeah.
Also, last time they talked about the strategy that they were still, last time they talked about strategy, they were still well beyond the place of continuing on the docks, but here they are again. We're a little bit later down the line, and they're still fucking counting shit on the docks. This is where Cuthbert is right to be angry, because what was that, last episode or the episode before where they were discussing, like, dude, we're clowns at this point if we keep counting here.
We can't keep counting, and then here we are like a month later.
Yeah, we're here I mean, I don't know how much later, but it's later enough where it's like they're still fucking there. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's just, it's like shocking almost.
I mean, it's before they go out to Sitco that they're like, we're running out of shit to count.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So Roland then said they think they're avoiding the drop because they know what's there, and if they don't think that yet, they soon will. Alain says that Cuthbert has a plan, and Roland gaze shifts to Cuthbert, but his interest was already leaving. Cuthbert did not want to hate him for it, but it was so easy. Bert says that they should go to Avery tomorrow and present it as a courtesy, as they have already established themselves as three courteous, if not slightly stupid, young fellows, and Roland agreed, smiling, saying to a fault. Cuthbert says they should tell them that they have finished on the docks and they intend to be as meticulous on the farm and cowboy side, but do not want to be a bother as they know it is the busiest time of year, and they will give the sheriff a list. Roland's eyes lit up and he threw the tack over the porch rail and grabbed Cuthbert in a rough hug. Cuthbert smelled the lilac and felt the urge to strangle Roland. Instead, he clapped him on the back. Roland pulled back, saying a list of ranches they would be visiting. And it would give them forewarning that they would need that they could then move the stock and tack and feed and equipment that they needed to, and the town didn't want them to see. He called it masterful and genius. Cuthbert said it was far from that, and said he is just sparing a moment to think about a problem that concerns them all and maybe the affiliation. Then he said, they must all think, wouldn't you say? And then Alain winced, but Roland did not seem to notice. And he was still grinning. Even at 14, the expression on his face was troubling. When he grinned, he looked slightly mad. So,
yeah.
I don't have a note for this, but do you think that's mad like angry or mad like insane?
Insane.
That's what I thought too, but like you could read that either way. I would say slightly mad. The slightly, word kind of makes me think insanity. But it's like,
it absolutely is insanity.
Yeah, I think it's probably got.
I don't know why he would be mad. He's very happy with Bert's idea. So.
No, I know, but there's some people that a smile can make them look angry, and it's just it's no fun.
Just how he's looking.
Yeah, it's like it's like resting bitch face, right?
It's quite mad.
There's those people that have that where they'll laugh and it's like, oh my god, what are you planning?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'm laughing. I just watched Jim Carrey. I'm like, you look evil.
That's you. See right there. I'm wondering what you're plotting.
I don't know what I'm plotting.
Don't do the scheming fingers. I hate when you do the scheming fingers.
So Roland just accepts that the enemy knows why they're slow or would soon know. Again, I want to strangle him through the page. I get that he is only a kid, but in this society, he's a gunslinger, and he has a responsibility that he is full on neglecting.
Yeah.
Also, it's a really good idea from Bert here. I'm glad to see Roland light up and give the idea the response it deserves.
Yeah, and it's not covered in like word for word with what you put, but I had to make a comment. It kind of hurts me to see Roland's true feelings about Bert. He's just a joker and not good at thinking.
Now, I should have put that. I don't think that's Roland's true feelings. I think that's Bert, because the way that paragraph is
it's how Bert thinks Roland thinks of him.
Exactly.
But still,
it's
at
like
the same
mirror.
time, the way that Roland reacts, it kind of confirms what Bert's like. Oh, you got an idea, huh? Like turns and like looks at him like that's how it kind of comes across. and the way that Roland reacts, like, oh my god, that is brilliant, you know, like shocked almost. It's like,
Yeah.
Roland still gives off the vibe that Bert's not that far off from how Roland really feels about him, and that just kind of like hurts me, as well as like it's a knock against Roland in my eyes, that it's just like, oh, just because he's loud and he's boisterous, that means he's not intelligent. Trust me, I've gotten that my whole life because I am loud and boisterous, and so many people have dismissed me as, oh, he's just a fucking idiot. And then when they actually get to know me, they're like, oh, well, he is so kind of an idiot, but not as big as I thought.
Oh, sir, I would have had you destroyed years ago if I didn't, find you useful in my schemes. So maybe Cuthbert's passive-aggressive marks and anger and challenges to Roland's stupidity is why I came to love him so much. I mean, what's not to love with his personality and humor and the lookout? But I think that I like him pushing back on Roland versus Alain just being kind of passive. Like,
Yeah.
I think that I'm going to align more with Cuthbert's way because that's my style. Like, my grandpa would have said that's the Dutch in me because he was born in Holland, and like, Dutch are not necessarily known for holding back.
Nope.
Blunt is very common.
Very blunt people. I met your grandpa. I loved your grandpa. He was absolutely exactly that. He called it right down the middle, and he never minced words either.
No, and I think I'm a bit more diplomatic than my grandpa.
A little bit,
but
yeah.
but I do always have that in my head, and I will let it loose sometimes.
I've heard you let it loose, and it's been fucking hilarious to see the looks on people's faces. Because I just sit there and I just go, oh shit, they just got the full tad.
It's like unlimited power.
Unlimited power.
But yeah, the smile.
Yeah.
That is we already talked about like mad angry versus mad insanity. It's just upsetting a little bit because it's like what that smile looks like. We've all seen it, whether it be Jack Nicholson or whoever. We've all seen a smile that just shows insanity.
Yep.
What is that like coming from a child?
It's terrifying. There's episodes of like Law and Order SVU where they've covered children, or there's a movie, I don't remember what it is. We actually talked about it on an episode this year. I think it's Edward Norton plays a character who's supposedly multiple personality disorder. They call it, the wrong name back then. I think it's the 90s or early 2000s. And his defense lawyer, gets him committed. And then he's like, catches him in a lie. And he like drops the act and he like looks up into the camera and he's got that smile. Another good one is Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
Just that smile into the camera. Dude.
Yeah.
Dude.
Anthony Perkins, Psycho.
Oh, yeah. Dude, chills thinking about those guys looking at the camera. That's what I'm thinking here is like with Roland. But you see it from like a child.
But seeing it from a kid.
It's so much worse.
Yeah. Because kids are inherently creepy.
Dead Man Walking. That's what, Baraki says I'm talking about Primal Fear.
Fear.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
But yeah, kids are just inherently creepy. Like, Poltergeist.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I can give you a million movies. Children of the Corn. Kids there's just something creepy about them. And in real life, too. I mean, you woke
Mighty
up
Ducks.
You woke up to your daughter, just sitting in the hallway, in the middle of the night.
Had her head tilted, just looking at me, and I'm like, what are you doing? Going to the bathroom? Why are you just standing there? I don't know.
Kids are just...
What the fuck?
Kids are just
I
creepy.
put a line of salt down across the door so she couldn't come in. For some reason, she wouldn't step over it until I vacuumed it up the next day. I don't know why.
Oh, I love the spirit of it.
Baraki says, here in this part of the story, I bet Eddie would have felt a connection to Bert. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
With all the shit with him trying to deal with Roland's emotions
Can
and
you
stuff.
imagine? Because Eddie would not have the built-in respect that Cuthbert had. Dude, it would be like lock, stock, double barrel.
Are we putting Eddie at the same age as them, or are we putting Eddie as an adult?
Does
Because
it matter?
I think he would be a little bit more diplomatic if he's talking to a child. But if it's Roland, well, maybe not. I think Roland gets both barrels of sarcasm from Eddie.
Yeah. There's a built-in respect. Maybe that comes from their lifelong friendship, or maybe it comes from the fact that the cultural built-in of like the fact that he's a gunslinger and how that they would see that,
And that he's not only a gunslinger in training and everything like that. He's also Stephen Deschain's descendant.
Yeah. So there's a lot built in that Eddie would not have. So that would be a whole. This is like 4 or 5 on the scale. Like Eddie would be an 11.
Yeah.
So Oh,
And
so
he would probably do the throttling like that you want to do.
Yeah.
He would just be like, all right, that's it. Come here.
yeah. Roland said that they may even move in a fair number of muties for them to look at just to continue the lies they had already told the boys. He then told Bert and Alain to go see the sheriff, and it was a good idea. At this, Bert nearly threw himself at Roland. And then I got a direct quote from the book, wanting to scream, yes, why not? Then you can spend tomorrow morning pronging her as well as tomorrow afternoon, you idiot. You thoughtless, love-struck idiot. So I just figured that's better to take word for word. But it was Alain who saved him and mayhap saved them all. He spoke up and told Roland sharply not to be a fool, which, surprise, that's
Alain.
that's a shocker there.
Yeah.
Roland turned to him looking surprised. No blaming you there. He was not used to this from this direction. Alain told him that he was their leader, and that was seen that way by Thorin and Avery and the whole town, and by the boys themselves. Roland answered no one appointed him, but Bert cut him off, shouting that no one needed to. He had won his guns. These folks would hardly believe it, and even he had hardly believed it himself lately. But Roland was a gunslinger, and he had to go. Whoever went
Damn,
with...
that's a jab that I didn't catch from Cuthbert.
Yeah.
Fuck, I don't know how you did it, but you did it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Or you know, it's like the town wouldn't believe that you're a gunslinger. And hell, I'm having a hard time believing it.
Yeah,
lately,
like, ooh.
So
It's one of those compliments, the underhanded compliment.
boom, roasted.
Boom, roasted.
And so he was a gunslinger and he had to go. Whoever went with him didn't matter, but he had to go. He stopped there. He could have said more, but if he did, where would it end? Their fellowship broken beyond repair, most likely, so he kept his mouth shut. So
good on Cuthbert. Point Cuthbert.
Point Cuthbert, and that's got to be difficult for him because if he's a twinner of Eddie, mouth shut is very difficult.
Extra point for being Cuthbert.
Yes, he waited for the explosion, but none came. Roland said that said all right in the mild, it doesn't matter much way that made Cuthbert feel like biting him to wake him up.
Yeah.
So now we think Cuthbert might be a vampire. We'll have to keep track of
Part
that.
zombie.
Or zombie, yeah. He wants to bite Roland, so let's keep an eye on him here. This is a world where I'm guessing vampires, werewolves, and zombies might even exist.
Oh
my. Yes, indeed. So Roland said tomorrow morning he and Bert would go and asked if 8 would suit him, and Bert agreed. And now that the discussion was over, his heart was beating wildly and his legs felt like rubber. It felt like he did after the showdown with the coffin hunters.
That's always fun to think of, having a discussion with your friend end up being the same as a life-threatening situation with the coffin hunters. Okay.
Yeah, like the closest you probably ever come to death, right? Like, yeah, I'm sure Court beat the fuck out of these kids and there was like some danger in their training.
Yeah.
But it would have been controlled danger.
Yep.
That was like a time where it's like, no, this is real life or death shit. So that is insane. As Roland is pointing out here, it really is genius because they could basically create the illusion of all their lies for the town. It opens them up to then fill the channel with ways to prove their lies. It's perfect.
It's like if they take as long on the cowboy side as they do as the doc side, then it's like, oh, fuck, they really are just that dumb and slow.
Yeah, exactly. Finally, Alain biting back a bit, shocking us all, I think. Rolling among us. Good job, Al.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been in the middle person between fights between friends like Al is here. It's so rough, especially if you agree with one side more than the other side, but you're trying to keep the peace and resolve the issue so you keep the friendship, the group together.
Yeah.
I had that, and it did not go well. We ended up losing a friend over this fight. I absolutely sided. It was my best friend and another friend, probably my second best friend. The two of them had a fight, and I was not there when it happened, but I was there when they tried to resolve it, and they ended up worse, and they ended up not talking for years. Like even at school and everything like that, like they wouldn't talk. So I get where Al's coming from here, trying to kind of keep the peace between the two of them, but at the same time, when one of them's wrong, you gotta point it out. You can't let that slide because otherwise, nothing's gonna get solved. And I'm glad that it was Al that called it out because Cuthbert wouldn't have been listened to.
Exactly. It's more effective from him because he is the quiet one.
Yeah.
So for him to finally speak up, it's gonna mean a lot. To be fair to Roland, Bert says that no one in the town would believe that he won his guns, but that is probably the point. Not saying Roland is actually thinking clearly, but I think the objective, but a big objective this side of the Traveler's Rest is to get the town and the coffin hunters to lower their estimation of them as much as they can, so that they might underestimate them again. Now the town, that might be possible. It's never going to happen with Jonas. You already kind of mentioned that. He will never view them as lesser threats, but until they are dead at his feet. But if the rest of the town can kind of like lose some respect for them and start to underestimate, because like you want to be underestimated, right? Like that's just like, I don't know if it's in Sun Tzu, but it feels like it's that old of a rule. Like if you're underestimated, it's always going to be to your benefit.
Exactly.
Like it's so like, again, I'm not going to excuse Roland because I don't think he's actually coming at this because it's the right decision. I think he's probably getting to the right answer through the wrong.
Like we've talked about. Yeah.
Right. So, but I will say
answer, wrong reasons.
Yes, but ultimately it is right. Like you want everyone to start underestimating you because you need that. Like you are so outnumbered and so just hopelessly outnumbered. Like you need people to like start lowering their guard a bit. So, and unfortunately, the most dangerous of the group will never do that though, and I don't think the other coffin hunters will either. But Jonas is the only one that truly matters. Like he is never going to fucking underestimate these kids
and
again.
this is where I have a problem with Cuthbert in this part, and a couple subchapters from here we'll get more into it. But Bert does underestimate the coffin hunters, and that is a problem. As again, while he is right with a lot of things, he's wrong on some things and wrong about how he gets to some of those right answers. The coffin hunters underestimating them is one of them.
Which is the genius of King, right? Because it's not just one person's entirely right, one person's entirely wrong.
It's not black and white. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
There's so many different shades of gray here, and even a couple blues that it's just like, wait, what?
And I think underestimating the coffin hunters is like a quintessential, the fact that he is just a kid. He's not a gunslinger. He's being trained to be a gunslinger. But it's like ultimately they got the best of the coffin hunters, and it wasn't that hard, essentially.
Yeah.
So ultimately, like kind of what Roland is maybe recognizing that we want people to underestimate us. That's the blind spot for Cuthbert, where he is underestimating now the most dangerous people because, well, we handled them pretty easily.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, hold on a second,
we beat
kid.
them in the first game. We can clearly beat them in the second game. It's like, yeah, but the problem is we don't know where the second game is taking place. It could be in their house or it could be at a neutral site.
Yeah.
We also don't know if they're going to get, this person back from injury, using the sports analogy.
Yeah.
We don't know if that person's going to play in the second game. We don't know if they're going to underestimate us like they did in the first game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors going into that Cuthbert is just like, no, we beat them.
Yeah, he's underestimating.
We're better.
Very, very dangerous people. So, so that's definitely bad on his side. I love that it stated as breaking of the fellowship and not the Tet. It feels like a cool allusion to Tolkien.
Yeah.
Which, I feel like King's done that throughout the Stand. I think both the Stand and the Dark Tower both have been called like, Stephen King's version of Tolkien. I think this one's probably more closely Tolkien, but the Stand is like Americanized, like what is Tolkien in our land of America. So it's just kind of cool to always see those things. I think years ago, Chris from Australia was talking about trying to like get a list of like all the different Tolkien allusions, riddles in the dark, riddles with Blaine. There's a number of them. And, just the fact calling it a fellowship instead of a Tet, it feels very specific because Tet is an established term at this point. So to use fellowship is kind of cool, I think. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but
no, it's great.
I mean, you can't say fellowship
without thinking of the Ring.
Without thinking of Fellowship of the Ring. It just, especially in our day and age, which I know that's not when this book was written, but on the other side of the movies, I don't even think a non-Tolkien person could hear Fellowship without immediately thinking of
Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, exactly. Wild that Bert is feeling the same now after the showdown with the Coffin Hunters. Tell us how big of a deal he sees this as.
Yeah.
So, good stuff. Let's move on here. Last chunk here. Roland says they will never. Roland says they will be their prettiest, nicest boys from the inners with good intentions and not many brains. He walked inside no longer grinning, which was a relief, but he did have a smile. He was still slightly smiling. Bert and Alain looked at each other and then let their breath out in a mutual rush. Bert cocked his head out away from the bunkhouse. Alain followed him as they moved out that way. Bert said that she had tranced him, whether she meant to or not, and that she'll kill them all in the end. Alain told him not to say that, even in jest. Bert said, all right, she'll crown them with the jewels of the Eld, and they'll live forever. Al told him he had to stop being angry, and Bert said that he can't. So that is the end of the subchapter.
Yeah.
I like the post-skirmish huddle between the two, but Roland has to at least see that they're out there, right? Like, Roland's got to notice that they just went out together. Like, because like even if it's not like you suspect that they're like having an after game on this fight. They're both on the porch and they both. You got to notice.
Dude,
that.
I doubt it. He's too distracted by thoughts of Susan to notice how angry Bert truly is. I doubt he notices much of anything right now.
Yeah.
Like, literally, he walked into the bunkhouse also. I mean, like, if you're just going to take, like, physical, thing, if his thoughts are so distracted that he doesn't know how mad Bert really is with him.
Yeah.
His best friend his entire life, like, literally they played together in diapers.
Yeah.
He's not noticing what they're doing.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a damn. Yeah, that might be the question. Is he not noticing, or does he just not give a shit?
Not care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't know which is worse.
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah. Then we're
Incompetence or ignorance? Isn't that the thing with like managers at work? Which is worse to work under, incompetence or ignorance? It's
yeah.
That's a tough. We both had both in our lives, so that's the correct answer.
Yes. Then we are back with Bert angry and Al trying to defuse things. So all things are restored back to the natural order here. So good stuff. All right, jump over to subchapter 4.
All right. Great storms of autumns were still a month or more away, but the following morning was drizzly and gray. Roland and Cuthbert set off for town wrapped in serapas and left Alain to do the few chores around the bunkhouse. Roland had a schedule tucked into his belt showing the farms and ranches they would be going to first. Sorry, something flew into my mouth. Starting with the 3 small spreads owned by the barony, the schedule kept the pace that they had developed on the docks, and they would keep them on the job until close to year's end. They rode in silence, each lost in his own thoughts. The road took them past the Delgado house. Stop here. Smart of them to keep the same pace. We talked about it in the previous subchapter with them coming up with Bert explaining this plan. It makes it so that it's even, and it's like, oh yeah, like I said, they really are that dumb and slow.
Exactly. And they have to maintain the same pace. Honestly, I would have been furious if they overlooked that somehow.
Like, would the normal kids probably would.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we'll go faster over there now that we're over there.
Yeah.
But because they are gunslingers, I bet that's why they caught it.
Yeah.
I actually tensed up right here because of Rhea. Has she sent the message already? King does this sometimes, and I'm like a beaten animal just waiting for it.
Yeah.
Like a cowering, like, oh shit, here it comes.
Yeah. Indeed. Also, with their schedule going till close to year's end, if we assume their calendar resembles ours, that means that they're going to be going to appear to be staying well beyond Reap. Probably not true, but good to give them the illusion as well. Might take their guard down since they are likely fixated on their own timelines. And if the boys' timelines happen to match up with theirs, that would probably raise some red flags, right? Because like if you're a coffin hunter, that's what you're going to be fixating on. Is like Reap's the time.
X day is when it's happening, and that's reaping. Hey, look at that. Coincidence.
Yeah.
Oh, the boys are going to finish counting everything on the day before reap.
Yeah.
Something seems off to me here, sir.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what if the Allies had found out that Hitler was moving a massive amount of troops on December 5th, or June 5th?
June 5th to France and Normandy, coincidentally.
Yeah. Like, wait, what? We know a date. Oh, yeah, it would have been actually the 5th, too, because that was the original date. So it's just one of those things that when you're fixated on a date, if other dates happen to align with it, you're going to get suspicious even if there's no reason for it, even if it was a pure coincidence. So it's probably wise that they made it appear that it's going well beyond Reap.
Exactly.
Roland
looked up and saw Susan sitting in her window, a bright vision in the gray light of that falling morning. His heart leaped up, and although he didn't know it then, this is a quote directly from the book, this whole section right here. His heart leapt up, and although he didn't know it then, it was how he would remember her most clearly forever after. Lovely Susan, the girl at the window. So did we pass the ghosts that haunt us later in our lives. They sit undramatically by the roadside like poor beggars, and we see them only from the corner of our eyes, if we see them at all. The idea that they have been there waiting for us rarely, if ever, crosses our minds. Yet they do wait. And when we have passed, they gather up their bundle of memory and fall in behind, treading in our footsteps and catching up little by little. The girl at the window, such a great... that's the end of the quote, and this is my note here. The girl at the window, such a great way of putting her when lesser authors would have just had her in some more sexual way to be remembered. Oh, the first girl that he had sex with, really.
Second.
And, well, like, made love to, let's put it that way, because the whore wouldn't even let him kiss. First girl he ever kissed, kind of thing. It absolutely would have been something more, like, physical and everything like that to lesser authors.
Yeah.
But this right here, King really does show, like kind of flexes, like, that's how he's always going to remember her.
Yeah.
Is that way, not the normal, typical, cheap way of remembering a woman, or your first love kind of thing.
Yeah. And we've also had illusions about the girl in the window since book 1, so this is a big moment for us as readers as well.
Big reveal, yeah, exactly.
And that's the name of this chapter, is the girl at the window. So I feel like we probably were already bracing that, like, we're finally going to get that moment.
Here it is.
Yeah, we've had illusions from it for pretty much since the beginning of this series. So to finally get it is pretty. It feels notable.
Yeah.
So
going on, Roland raised his hand, meaning to blow a kiss, and then remembered himself at the last moment and threw a saucy little salute instead. Susan smiled and returned the salute. None saw Cordelia in the garden watching this exchange. She looked from Roland up to Susan, who was sitting there in the window humming. A sharp splinter of suspicion whispered its way into her heart. Susan's sudden change in temperament, from altering bouts of sorrow and fearful anger to a kind of dazed but mostly happy acceptance. But maybe it wasn't acceptance at all. You're mad, Cordelia whispered to herself. She dropped to her knees and started chopping sharp root vines and tossing them next to the house. She tells herself there is nothing between them and they're just kids, and kids that age have no more discretion than the drunks at the rest. But the way they smiled at each other, perfectly normal, she said to herself, and continued chopping, but wilder now, and slicing a perfectly good sharp root in half, ruining it. She was stressing herself out with reap day and coping with her brother's troublesome daughter. Has her seeing things that weren't there. People smile at each other all the time, but she realized the salute was almost something else, like a kiss, but he remembered himself at the last minute and turned it into a salute instead. Even if she saw something, it was just young people being young. It meant nothing. But her words to herself didn't remove the chilly splinter from her heart. And so that's the end of the subchapter there.
I also do love, I have to point out, I feel like the last number of Cordelia chapters you've ended up with over the course of a number of episodes.
It's not done intentional, I swear.
Oh, I know, because I know you wouldn't do that on purpose. Nor would you pick Ermot and Rhea.
We're not talking about that anymore. Honestly, I'm shocked that Cordelia at least tried to talk herself out of believing it. From the way she acted since the welcome dinner, I thought she would have killed Susan seeing this interaction a few chapters ago. Like, literally, I could see her just, like, running up the stairs and just stabbing Susan with her knife that she's using to chop stuff with in the garden. But just be like, you looked at him! Ah! The way she's acted, it makes me feel like this is like, wait, she actually, like, tried to talk herself out of it?
Yeah.
Like, holy shit!
Also, I do have to pause.
Uh-oh. Swear to God if you mention that fucking snake one more time.
Different snake. What is it? Robin Hood? Hiss! You're hissing in my ear.
What's your note here, Tad?
Oh, I love it when you try to get all stern and try to move it on. So I wonder... Hey, it's a Disney reference. Yeah, I wonder if it is stress. Like, she is stressed to a certain point and cannot bear more, or it could be an attempted denial for the sheer fact of what her suspicion would mean. Like, it could be like a self-preservation type thing, right? Like, I don't think she's trying to, like... I wouldn't give her credit that she's trying to think the best of Susan, I guess. And I don't know that's not what you're saying, but, like, when it comes down to the fact that finally it seems like she's not immediately jumping to the worst thing and just believing it. She's almost trying to, like, debate herself away from it. Yeah. It kind of almost makes me wonder, is like a self-preservation thing of, like,
Oh, it's purely selfish.
Yeah.
She only cares about the transaction and what it would mean if Susan had gone with Will Dearborn and done something. That's the only reason she cares.
Yeah.
She doesn't care about Susan one lick. We've established that.
Oh, for sure. No, but I just mean in terms of, like, the trying to, like, almost, like, decode, like, her brain a little bit, because it's like the whole time she's always jumped to the most, like, ridiculous things. Even when there was not much there, she jumped immediately to like 10 times what it should have been. So it's like weird that she's arguing it here, but it's like I wonder if it really is like her brain just subconsciously knowing that like it can't handle anymore. Like this would literally break her brain, and so it's a matter of like then
self-preservation.
Preserve itself from going full Joker. So, and Baraki hashtag Tat is terrible, but we were here for it.
Yeah.
I always loved Robin Hood as a kid. I wasn't a big Disney kid. Like my grandma had all the VHSs in those little plastic cases, but I don't know. I never got into them like a lot of kids our age. There's a couple that I liked.
Yeah,
though.
you were too busy watching horror movies.
Yeah, there was that. But like I always liked Robin Hood, Sword in the Stone. Like there was a couple that I liked. Some of the more obscure ones. Like I wasn't as big into like Cinderella, Snow White. Like not that I didn't like them. Never got into those as much as some of the lesser probably seen by Disney people.
Which is funny because I've still never seen. I don't think I've seen Sword in the Stone all the way through.
Oh, really?
And Robin Hood I didn't see until I became a dad.
Really?
Like I saw parts of it, but I never. That was one that my parents, for some reason, we didn't own those two. But like Jungle Book, that's my jam.
Yeah.
Baloo's my spirit animal.
Hayden will not be pleased that you have a bear spirit animal.
It's Baloo. I don't know if he counts as a bear. He's just a big cuddly teddy bear.
Yeah, but I see people that have pictures of like real grizzly bears, and they're like, if this is a killer, why does it look so cute? You know,
it's true. My wife says that about all cats,
especially those ears.
Yeah,
like the bear ears. That just looks like a cute animal.
The little round ears. They don't even have points.
The round poofy ears.
Yeah.
So let's give props to Cordelia here. She was sharp enough to actually see Roland's actions for what they almost were, and him catching himself. I know we have seen her be paranoid, but this is not that. This is cunning sharpness surrounded by paranoia.
Yes.
Like, we've got to give her credit. Like, we don't like her.
Well, she's sharp. Like, we've had several examples of her being sharp. It's like, fuck, how'd she figure that out? It's like, is it just paranoia, or is it her being clever and sharp? And this is Exhibit A to its cleverness, not just her being paranoid.
Because I do think there are sometimes it's paranoia.
Yeah.
Like the whole, like, open the dinner. Like, there was an exchange with Roland and Susan, and she immediately jumped to, you know him. Like, what the fuck's going on? That was just pure paranoia of just, like, seeing something, nothing, really, and making a big thing out of nothing. It was like
a wave, even. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
Like, if I remember right.
Yeah, and she's like, do you know him? And, like, so there is times it's pure paranoia, but this is showing, like, no. Like, she fully, figured out exactly what was happening from Roland's side.
Yeah.
So that's got to give her some credit there.
Yeah, and then my last note here before we move to Subchapter 5 is just as if we didn't have enough to worry about here. Now Cordelia is involved, but we have that Rhea thing looming.
Yeah.
That what if Cordelia were to find out about Susan? It's like...
It is the knife of Pericles dangling above.
It's not dangling above. It's like pressing on the skin, and there's a little bit of trickle of blood already.
Indeed. Barack says, watch Annihilation and talk about how cute bears are. I know.
Dude, I've seen that scene.
Because Hayden is so deathly afraid of bears, I can tell you The Revenant. I can tell you about that one. Whenever there's bear scenes, I catalog them.
Yeah, there's a scene in Annihilation that crossed my YouTube algorithm.
Oh, yeah?
A while back, and yeah, no. That's
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. We need more bear scenes like that. Cocaine Bear was real good.
I still need to see that.
It was fun. All right, so Subchapter 5. Jonas answered Roland's knock and let the two boys into the sheriff's office. He was wearing a deputy star on his shirt, and looked at them with his expressionless eyes, and then addressed them as boys and told them to come on in and get out of the wet, and stepped in to allow them entrance. The boys stepped in, and there was a gas heater in the corner filled with fuel from Sitgo's candle, no doubt. And the room that had been cool the first day they had come was now hot. The 3 cells held 5 woeful-looking drunks, 2 pairs of men, and a woman in the center cell by herself. Roland feared that if she got her finger any further up her nose, she might not be able to retrieve it. So, again, Stephen King.
Hey-o.
The 5-year-old Stephen King. Reynolds was leaning against the notice board, picking his teeth with a broom straw. Deputy Dave was sitting at the roll-top desk, stroking his chin and frowning through the monocle at a board. And Roland was not surprised that he had interrupted a game of castles. So you can just feel the tension, if not from the stuff we've seen from scene of the sheriff and his goons, like the shit that we've all seen that the boys have it.
Yeah.
Even if removing all that, I feel like you could just feel the tension here. Maybe it's just the showdown at the Traveler's Rest. But from the fact that 2/3 of the Coffin Hunters are here, as well as 2/3 of our boys are here.
Yeah.
So.
And the Coffin Hunters are deputies now.
Yeah. We knew that about Jonas.
Yeah.
Because it was Cordelia when he walked her home. he had a badge. There's a point earlier, but we did not know about the other two.
Reynolds and DePape.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Also, the gas heated room seems pretty unimpressive in our world, but in this world that'd be quite unique.
Yeah.
I always like to try to remind myself that this is a different world and we shouldn't take things for granted. Like ice in the drinks was a big marvel for them. So a room that has heating, like that's not a normal thing.
Does that ever pop into your head like randomly? It happened to me in the middle of the summer this year. The air conditioning kicked on. I was hot, and I had forgot to open the vent because we have the vents in our house are up high instead of down low.
Yeah.
And so we have one that blows right onto the bed. So in the summertime, I like to have it open and have the cool air blowing on me, and then I can bundle up and go to sleep. And I got up and I opened the vent, and I'm like, God, I fucking, annoyed that I had to get up. First world problem, right?
Yeah.
And then I got thinking about it, and I'm like, fuck. There are people living in Utah 500 years ago that didn't even know what the hell, ice was, except in the wintertime when it froze.
Yeah.
Because Utah has one of the most widest swings of temperature on the freaking planet. We can get up into the 110s, I swear.
Yeah.
And down into the negatives here. Like,
I love the negatives.
I know you do.
Those are my favorites.
When it snowed earlier this week, I knew how happy you were.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
I could feel you, like, bouncing. Like, you were, like, so happy.
Because, one, I love snow, and two, because it destroys the souls of people. And I revel in that. I just absolutely love that so much.
It's why you want to live in Alaska.
It's also why I love, whenever the weather changes here, it starts to become summery, but then there's always, like, that last snowstorm that absolutely fucking debilitates people. Because
you're talking, like, in, like, March or April.
Because they get a taste of spring, and they're just like, yes, it's spring, and then summer's coming, and then it snows, like, 2 inches again, and it just destroys people. And I drink the
Do you remember what year it was? It was within the last, like, 5-7 years. There was one year where we hit April and finally got our first, like, 50-degree weather. And then, I'm not kidding, like 4 days later, we got like 3 feet of snow. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, it's glorious.
Oh, dude, I think I texted you and it was like, dude, this snow. And you're like, it's amazing.
Oh, it really is. I love it. But I will also say I've also heard that air conditioning is what conquered the West.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good one. And then also...
Baraki makes a good point. Plenty of people in the world still never feel central air cooling or heating. That's a fair point.
Oh, my God, yeah. Like, I remember in high school, we got our first house that had central air. And
versus a swamp cooler.
Swamp cooler. And it's like, that's never going back.
Nope.
That's not a thing, man.
Yeah.
Because swamp coolers are terrible.
They are.
Better than nothing, but they're terrible.
Yeah.
So the nose picking is just classic King.
Yeah.
You just love when he's being a 5-year-old. Because it really is.
It is.
That's what it comes down to. So Reynolds says, look here, Eldred, 2 of the in-world boys, and asked them if their mommies knew they were out. Cuthbert said that they did and told Reynolds that he looked well and asked if the wet weather was soothing his pox. Roland elbowed Bert without looking at him and without losing his pleasant smile.
Gold medal for Roland.
Once again, Olympic sport there. He said to pardon his friend, and his humor transgressed the bounds of good taste, and he can't help it. He also said there was no reason for them to scratch at each other. They had all agreed to let bygones be bygones. Jonas agreed and limped over to the board. In the game, he had begun to castle and thus was vulnerable, although not very, as Roland thought Deputy Dave was not much in the way of competition. Roland said he saw he was working for the barony now and looked at the star on his chest. Jonas agreed, saying the fellow went leg broke and he is now helping out, which is what we heard the first time. I think it was, and we heard who.
I think it's when he was walking. Cordelia home.
Yeah, and we heard who it was too. Where it's, oh yeah, so and so was out fishing and broke his leg, and so I'm helping out. So we've already heard that. So now we're getting it to where, because we got to remember sometimes we learn things, and Roland and them don't know it yet. So Roland asked if the other 2 were helping out as well, and Jonas said yes, and then asked how their work was going with the fisher folk. Slow, he hears. Roland said that, done at last, and that the work was not as slow as them who, as much as it was them who was slow, and they came disgraced and did not intend to leave that way. Slow and steady wins the race. I mean, come on, Bert doesn't deserve the elbow. Reynolds started it.
I mean, yes, but you don't rise to it, right? Like, that's what they always teach you.
Oh, take the low ground, sir. Get down and muddy. Just the high ground's no fun.
Bite their ankles.
Bite their kneecaps.
Their kneecaps. I have a note here. It makes you wonder if Jonas is going to make Reynolds pay for that little comment later. Because he did start it. So, I think Jonas is wanting to keep up appearances and everything like that. Is Reynolds crossing a line here? Is Jonas going to be like, listen, you mother...
Yeah.
Smack.
Yeah. And it wasn't Reynolds that started the Traveler's
No, it
Rest,
was
right?
DePape.
That was DePape. So.
But still, it's like he's had issues with both of them.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So it's like...
And from his perspective, they both
fucked
started
up, yeah.
and then let that get out of hand at the Traveler's Rest. So.
But then also, let's remember last time where they both came down trying to talk to Jonas about, hey, we're getting antsy and restless and everything like that. And Jonas is like, yeah, I hear you. And they're like, do you? And he's like, shut the fuck up. I hear you, all right? Like, he gets kind of irritated with them. So
yeah.
I could see a little smack upside the back of the head maybe for Reynolds later.
Yeah, probably. I have a feeling that kicking or elbowing Cuthbert is a talent that Roland has honed over years and is probably better at that than he is with his guns.
He has more gold medals in it than Michael Phelps does.
Yeah. And I mean, I think he's better at that than he is with his guns now. But the question is, does he ever get better with his guns than he is with elbowing or kicking Cuthbert? I don't know, man.
Yes.
I think that a lifetime with him, like, or their
But
childhood.
He lives how many lifetimes without him?
I know, but still, maybe I'm just
I
wondering.
had to pause for a second because I'm like, fuck, do we know? And then I was like, oh, right, yeah, book 1, 2, and 3, Cuthbert's not there, so
Yeah.
duh.
So I bet Roland would love to watch Jonas play castles. It might be very illuminating about his general tactics. Reminds me of the Patton movie when Patton reads Rommel's book.
Yeah.
And then uses that to deduce some movements.
Movements, yeah.
Great stuff. So one man breaks his leg and 3 coffin hunters deputized to replace him. Right.
Seems totally legit.
Got it. So
Absolutely
This
legit.
reminds me of Tombstone.
Oh, dude, I almost put that down as a note. It's like one gets made deputies, one gets made marshals, and it's like they're just butting heads. At that point, they just might as well take the badges back off and throw them down. They don't mean anything.
Yeah.
If everyone's law enforcement, no one's
No
law
one is.
enforcement.
Especially 2 that are essentially in a gang war with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So there was a flush from deeper in the building, and Roland thought that it had all the comforts of home and Hambry sheriffs. Following the flush was heavy steps descending the staircase. A few moments later, Avery appeared, one hand buckling his belt, the other one mopping his sweaty forehead, and Roland admired the man's dexterity. Avery said that the beans he had ate last night took a shortcut, and looked at Roland and Cuthbert and said it must be too wet for net counting, and Jonas answered, saying that Cy Dearborn just told them that net counting days were over. Avery said that's fine and asked what was next and asked if there was anything that the town could do to help them. Roland said that they could help and pulled a list from his belt. He then said they needed to move to the drop, but he didn't want to inconvenience anyone. Deputy Dave grinned and moved his squire around his own hillock, and Jonas castled at once, ripping open Dave's entire left flank. Dave asked how he managed that, and Jonas said easy. He only ever played to win, and he couldn't help it. He then turned to Roland and smiled broadly. Then he said that it's like the scorpion said to the maiden as she lay dying, you knowed I was poisoned when you picked me up. So that's the classic scorpion and the frog in our world.
Yeah.
I don't know how the maiden covers it.
There's actually several. I actually heard a different version of that story about 3-4 years ago.
Well, because it's all about the frog, like riding the frog's back across the river.
Right.
So how does a maiden? I wouldn't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like the different version that I heard was an indigenous person here in America has a story. They the tribe, one of the tribes here in Utah. I heard it at a festival where it was a brave picking up a snake, not a scorpion. So
Yeah.
it's a different version of the same story. So that's what I'm assuming here is that
Yeah.
it's the maiden and the scorpion kind of thing. So
Yeah. So my note, Avery is just such a boorish slob at every turn, belching, farting, coming out of the bathroom with a play-by-play of his bowels and still buckling his belt. He's just the worst.
yeah.
He's just the worst.
Absolutely. And we just talked about all the comfort of the heater and everything like that. Now a flushing toilet as well. Even Roland kind of notices that. What next? They're going to have some Wi-Fi in the sheriff's office? Like, damn.
Yeah, I guess flushing toilet. I guess have we seen flushing toilets in Roland's world before? I guess I wouldn't. Again, we could take our shit for granted at times.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's necessarily a marvel that the flushing toilet is a thing, but that they have it at the sheriff's office. I wonder. Is that
That's what Roland
where
says
it's
is like the home comforts.
the comforts of home here?
At,
Like-
at a public, what's the right word?
like a public servants?
Public servants. That's
Yeah.
building. No, that usually gets like the minimum budget.
Yeah.
Like you're
Like
gonna have to use the outhouse.
Yeah.
kind
yeah.
of thing.
Or one of the gas station bathrooms that's
yeah,
around the,
yeah. Go across the street to the Traveler's Rest.
around the side. You always know you're in trouble when you have a bathroom that's around the side of a gas station and not just inside.
Yeah, that's where you're like.
They give you like the hubcap with the key to get
Yeah.
in there, and like you just know that no one's been in there to clean that since like the Hoover administration. Oh yeah. Let's see. Baraki says, "Yeah, LOL. Yeah, I grew up with old Swampy too. Yeah, swamp coolers, man.
Oh, the
and
worst.
I loved them as a kid because like that's all I knew. And it's like when you're really hot, you just went and laid in the hallway under it and stuff. Like, whatever.
Ours blew out of the hallway instead of down the hallway, out of the hallway into the kitchen. So we would climb up on top of the kitchen table and just lay on the kitchen table. My mom used to get so mad at us. Get off the kitchen table. That's where we eat.
Oh man. Let's see. And then Brock says the conversation is a game of castles too. The actual game of castles is used to highlight that brilliant technique.
Oh yeah,
indeed. So no.
Been talking about castles for chapters now.
Yeah, indeed. So no real reaction to the list. Good job on all the townsfolk and coffin hunters for good poker faces.
Yeah, even Deputy Dave and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Then of course the double meaning with Jonas's game of castles, which goes to Brocky's comment there. Yeah. To the game of castles and his statement said to Dave, but is really to Roland. A good way to ratchet up the tension even more.
Oh yeah, and also like the last line is so good too, because he didn't do it looking at Dave. He could have very easily been like, oh yeah, like just saying it to Dave and everything because they're talking about castles and everything. No, he turns and gives his full attention to Roland. He makes eye contact with this boy that he fully intends to kill. Yeah, and then he delivers that line. So it's like, it's like, ooh, yeah, he's still coming for you, Roland.
Yeah, indeed. Honestly, this scene's a bit shorter than I expected too, because that's it. That's the subchapter. Done. I expected there to be a little bit more. Back and forth, but
absolutely
not so.
So moving on to subchapter 6, Susan comes in from feeding the livestock and goes to the pantry for a drink of juice like she does normally. She didn't see her aunt standing in the chimney corner watching her. When Cordelia spoke, it startled her, and it wasn't just the unexpectedness of the voice, but also the coldness in it. Do ye know him? The juice jug slipped, and Susan put a steadying hand underneath it, as orange juice was too precious to waste, especially this late in the season. She turned to her aunt, who was standing there in the shadows. Cordelia had hung her sombrero on a hook in the entryway and still wore her serape and muddy boots. Her chuilo knife, I translated that. I've never known what that was before. It's actually a large-bladed knife, basically.
Jason approves.
Not machete level, but
Jason approves of all big cutting implements.
This is true. Lay on top of a stacked wood with green strands of sharp-root vines still trailing from its edge. See, I didn't know if it was like shears or like a knife, kind of thing. So
yeah.
Her tone was cold, but her eyes were hot with suspicion. A sudden clarity filled Susan that if she said no or even asked, "Who are you talking about?" that she would be damned. So instead, Susan said, yeah, she knew both of them. They had met them at the party, and her aunt had scared her. I get so nervous when King ever mentions a character we see as borderline psychotic with a knife sitting right there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, here's a Annie from Misery, and oh, look, there's a butcher's knife next to her. It's like, no. Oh, look, there's Randall Flagg with a knife next to him. No. Psychotics like that and sharp implements.
Let's not imping the reputation of Randall Flagg.
I mean, if the shoe fits, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck.
He bites, sir. He doesn't use knives.
Cuthbert was going to bite.
Nails, though. He does use nails.
It's true.
So I
lots of them.
I wholeheartedly agree. One must never waste orange juice. But all seriousness, a good reminder of the world like this. We could take things for granted with our world, but in this world, things would be precious that we wouldn't really value. I mean, I feel like it was in our lifetime that we went from produce being in season and out of season to being able to buy anything any time of year. You remember that as a kid, don't you?
Oh, dude,
you couldn't buy
you couldn't buy strawberries,
grapes, and strawberries
in the dead
like,
of winter.
No, you just couldn't.
No.
Nowadays you can. Like, it's wild.
Yeah, because the logistics have gotten better, where you're able to ship it from somewhere that can grow them.
Yeah,
in December.
Same as it's no longer as sketchy to eat fish here in Utah.
Yes,
like a 2-day journey from the ocean.
Yes.
Nowadays they can flash freeze and ship and get
they've improved the ability to ship it, but also lessen the time that it takes to ship it, and also upgraded the ability to preserve it while shipping
exactly.
it.
So, but yeah, we used to have in season, out of season stuff. I remember always asking for certain things. Oh, that's out of season. They don't have that at the store.
Yeah, you have to wait until spring.
Yeah, so it's like, and how much more in a world like theirs, where it truly is like hand to mouth. Like
literally, you are not going to have orange juice until oranges grow and ripen, and then you can make some next year.
Yeah, and if that's only if you have good crops too.
Yeah, what if you have a bad year? What if a hurricane hits or something? You know?
Indeed.
Very clever of Susan to realize her aunt's suspects right off the bat and how to respond. That whole, even if I ask, who are you talking about? Like, she would be damned. Like, catching on that quick and everything like that.
Yeah, and that's my note. Yeah, props to her for knowing the limits of her lies. Sometimes you just know when something is going to fly or not, and good for her for knowing it. And in a pinch, Cord startled her on purpose, likely trying to surprise her into an honest answer. Perhaps that's maybe my guess.
There's a lot of characters that I've seen do that where they're just like, yeah, you know. So we're like, who did it? You know, like you're trying to startle them into, I did it. Oh shit, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But very gunslingers for her to be able to hold her composure in that circumstance. So much more credit to her for it because she has not been raised her entire life to have that medal.
And save that note because we're going to come back to it.
Because that again, that's quick. Like to be able to like get ambushed so quickly, be startled, and not immediately come with like who are you talking about? You know, like no, to be able to like calculate all that in a fraction of a second and
give the appropriate
right
response
answer.
there.
Yeah.
So going on, Cordelia asked why Roland saluted her, and Susan said, how could she know? Perhaps he just felt like it. Her aunt bolted forward, slipping in her muddy boots, regaining her balance and seizing Susan's arm, and now her eyes were blazing. And then direct quote from Cordelia here. Be it insolent with me, girl. Be it haughty with me, miss oh so young and pretty, or I'll... And that's the end of the quote.
I also love that you got to read that line.
The Miss oh so young and pretty.
Because I know how much that grates on you.
Fucking drives me nuts. Susan pulled back so hard that Cordelia staggered and would have fallen if not for the table that she caught herself on. Susan says if she calls her that again, she'll slap her. Cordelia's lips drew back from her teeth in a dry, ferocious smile and said, you'd slap your father's only living blood kin? Would you be so bad? Susan says, why? Why not? Don't you slap me? That knocked some of the heat out of Cordelia, and she stopped smiling and said, not a half a dozen times since she was a toddler, and since she was always trying to grab things like pots of boiling water. I pause here. Fucking come on. You got to be fucking kidding me. She slapped her 3 or 4 times in this story alone.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, that pisses me off so bad. That fucking hypocrite.
Oh, Cordelia is very good at manipulation, that's for sure. Good on Susan for laying down the boundary, though I doubt Cord will abide by it.
Absolutely not. So going on, Susan says that Cordelia slaps her with her mouth mostly nowadays, and she's put up with it. But if she's old enough to be sent to a man's bed for money, Cordelia will keep a civil tongue with her. Cordelia opened her mouth to defend herself and realized how the girl's anger and accusations were leading her away from the subject of the boys. The boy, more specifically. She asked Susan if she only knows him from the party, meaning Dearborn. Susan says she had seen him around town. She'd seen all 3 of them. Then asked if she is satisfied. Susan saw with mounting dismay that Cordelia was not. Cordelia asked her to swear on her father's name that she hadn't been meeting Dearborn. That's on the nose. Like, holy shit. Susan thinks about all the afternoon rides, all the care that they took to make sure that no one was around or saw them. But a stupid little wave is all that it took to do them in. Susan says she won't swear and that her aunt has no right to ask her to. Cordelia cries shrilly to swear and grabs the edge of the table for balance. She screams that Susan isn't a child and it's not a game to swear and then again swear it. Susan says no and turns her back. Her heart was beating madly, but an awful clarity informed the world. Roland wouldn't know it for what it was. Susan was seeing with gunslinger's eyes. So back to what your comment said. She has like this instant clarity and everything. She catches a reflection in a window of her aunt advancing on her with a raised fist. Not a hand, a fist. Without turning, Susan put up her hand in a halting gesture and said, "Raise that not to me. Raise it not, ye bitch." She saw Cordelia's eyes widen in shock and dismay, and the fist loosen and fall to her side. Cordelia asked in a small, hurt voice, "How can you call me so? What's so coarse in your tongue and your regard for me?" Susan left without replying. She went to the barn that was filled with smells from her childhood and drove away all the clarity in her head. She put her head against Pylon's neck and cried. Pylon, her horse, of course.
Yeah. That is asking for a throat punch.
What? It is a horse, of course. I mean, like, What else am I supposed to say? It is a horse, obviously. I mean, it's wrong, Ted. It's just wrong.
No, it's proper. As Cordelia would tell us.
Don't. I'll throw punch you if you bring her up. I really, truly hate Cordelia. Calls Susan's names. It's disrespectful and even goes to punch her. But for the second that Susan stands up for her, all of a sudden it's, oh, how mean you are to me. Oh, fucking bully.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to, is that she is an absolute bully, because the second that Susan stands up for herself, all of a sudden it's, oh, why would you do that to me?
Yeah, indeed.
I'm your your father's only living blood. It's
yeah.
like, so is she.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed.
God, oh.
I guess maybe it is the Roland in me, but I never see the hesitation to swear on something dear. Like, what is the harm aside from superstition? What's her dad gonna do? Die again?
Yeah.
Like, this is like life and death type shit, right?
Yeah.
So like, and this is through all stories, not just King, this is movies, television. I just do not get the idea of like not swearing on your children,
Swear on your mother's grave,
mom,
like that kind of
just
thing.
all these type of things. I don't get it. Like, unless you are in that such a superstitious person that you think that actually means something,
that you're gonna drop dead if you lie.
But I mean, I don't know. Maybe that makes me sound like like a terrible liar or something. But it just comes like, when it comes to some of these things, I don't get.
Yeah.
The apprehension.
No,
like,
yeah, for sure.
I don't know. Yeah. It's weird.
Susan seeing the world as a gunslinger is so cool. She wasn't trained and raised in it like Roland, but you can see the fate working, that Roland found someone like himself, bringing him together with her.
Yeah.
That's just so cool.
Yeah. And exactly as I said earlier, a person without the hint of gunslinger metal
Yeah.
might have been shocked into a truth earlier. So she has it, at least in part, and now it goes one step further to seeing gunslinger fashion is totally badass. So, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Subchapter 7. Avery rejoiced that he was correct, that they were just slow and careful as he held up the list. Then he cackled happily and said, with this list, they could move anything that they didn't want the boys to see at days in advance. Reynolds said that they are fools, but he pined for another chance at them, and thought that if Dearborn thought bygones were bygones with the Traveler's Rest, then he was beyond foolish and into the land of idiocy. Deputy Dave said nothing and just looked over the board, trying to figure out how Jonas destroyed him in 6 moves. Avery said he wanted to wrap up dry and go right to seafront with this, and marveled over the list, which listed all the farms and ranches and proposed dates of inspection up to year's end and beyond. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen anything about, we've seen up to year's end, but to say and beyond, so
That is the first time.
their list actually goes into the next year. That's wild. Jonas told him to do that and stood up. Dave asked if he wanted another game, and Jonas said he'd rather play with a weed-eating dog.
God damn.
Damn. Back to a previous scene where they were debating the slowness of the boys, and Avery had said that they might just be slow. Now he seemingly won that prediction and is kind of getting his victory lap a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
And Bert's plan here was really a good one. Like, it's fooling everyone, it seems like.
Yeah.
Because it is so good.
Yeah. And then, ouch, no politeness for Deputy Dave from Jonas. Also, I feel like it's always calling him Deputy Dave just makes him seem more stupid. Maybe it's the Tatum line from Screen about Deputy Dewey when she's demeaning him in front of everyone. But I feel like King is doing that on purpose because no one else has been given their title with their name every single time they're mentioned. It isn't that way with Avery or Reimer or Thorin, but with Dave, it's always Deputy Dave.
Yep.
So it's like there just feels something demeaning about that. I don't know what it is.
No, you're
like.
I'm with you on that.
Because there's nothing like demeaning about Deputy. Like that's not a demeaning thing, but it's
No.
just like there's something about Deputy Dave too that it just feels like King
it
is just.
sounds like a buffoon.
It does. I mean,
It's Deputy Dave.
he fits the role, but it
Right.
could be Scream too, because
Deputy
hey,
Dewey.
Deputy Dewey, we're going home. Like, yeah. So
Mom said that when I'm wearing this uniform, you
treat me like a man of the law.
and talk with me with respect. So back to Jonas treating Deputy Dave that way. Makes you wonder why he accepted a game with Dave in the first place. Was Jonas that bored? He knew he was going to wipe the floor with him.
Maybe he hoped that he'd have a little bit more competition from. Not that he thought that he was like a smart person, but maybe he's a good Castles player.
Could be.
Like, and it's like then once you see him and you play him, you're like, okay, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I'd rather play against a weed-eating dog. Damn.
Interesting to see Jonas showing the same disregard to more established town folks now. Seemed like he's always treated his men that way, or the drunks at the Traveler's Rest, people of low repute. But now Deputy Dave, he's showing him the same disrespect that he shows these others. So is he finding himself ingrained enough to start being himself around anyone? Because I feel like he was being more polite to like the movers. Because like Deputy Dave, like I'm guessing that's probably a dude that his family's lived in this town for generations. Like,
Yeah.
he may not be he's not the mayor, but I can't imagine.
But he might know someone.
Yeah,
you know?
I feel like he's
a
still
deputy for a reason, right? Like it still feels very political.
Yeah.
That he is a deputy. But I think what it might be a different angle with what you're saying, agreeing with you, but from a different way. I think it just is coming down to time. Jonas doesn't give a fuck anymore. He doesn't have to keep up. He doesn't have to keep up those appearances anymore to all these idiot, fishermen and cowboys. And everything.
It scares me because it's like, does he see himself as ingrained enough in the town that the people accept him more now? Because maybe he was seen as more of an outsider. That like, okay, we're kind of. You're here with the mayor, like
you seem
whatever,
kind of sketchy.
But it's like now you're ingrained enough. Like when you start being more jovial with like a group of strangers, like you're feeling more fitting in, and it's like that could be dangerous because if that's true and that's reciprocated, and the town sees him as an insider now a little bit more, that means
As one of them.
Now the boys are in even more of a trouble because now it's not
now
just
they are the outsiders and he's not.
Far more outsiders, yeah. Whereas now, like it's not an outsider versus an outsider, but now it's an outsider versus someone that's starting to become accepted into the inner core, and that's bad news for our boys.
Absolutely.
So Jonas moved to the door and opened it, went out into the porch. The drizzle had become a soft, steady rain, which I do have to point out that's the weather today too. Kind of interestingly.
That's your note here.
I do have a note for it.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember if I made a note for it. I remember right as I'm reading this and looking outside, I'm like, oh, look at that.
I actually tacked on a note.
It's a light drizzle out there now. So Hill Street was deserted. Reynolds had followed him out and called after him. Jonas told him to get away, and without turning around. Reynolds hesitated a moment and then went back inside and closed the door. Jonas asked himself what was wrong with him. He should have been pleased with the boys and their list, and pleased as Avery was and Reimer would be. After all, had he not said 3 days ago that the boys would soon be over on the drop counting? He had. So why did he now feel so unsettled, so jittery? Because he had still not been contacted by Farson's man Latigo, because they had not had their goodly troop of men from Farson yet. But it was too soon, and Jonas knew it. Reaping was still almost a month away, but it was bad weather, or was it the bad weather making his leg hurt and making him feel nasty? No, it was bad, but it had been worse. The trouble was in his head. He thought in castles a clever player would peek around their hillock for just a moment and then duck back, and that's what this felt like. It was so right it smelled wrong. Which that's an interesting way to think about it. It was crazy, but also not crazy at all. He spoke aloud and asked if Dearborn was playing castles with him, and if he was, he'd soon wish that he had stayed with his mommy, or if they would have wished they stayed with their mommy. So yeah, first of all, I love that Utah is currently raining. Feels perfect for this section. That was my
and again, my note just tacking onto it is like we said earlier. It's right around the same time of year too.
Yeah, because a summer rain versus this rain, that's a totally different thing.
Absolutely. Like, even spring rain feels different than this.
Yeah, this is
that cold, bitter rain where it's like
that drops the temperature 10 degrees.
And it's like, is it going to snow? Is it not going to snow?
It was supposed to snow today too.
Yeah, me and my wife were talking about it earlier. We're like, it's trying hard to snow. Like those raindrops, because you could tell like the raindrops. It's like raindrops go. Whoosh, but snow goes and it kind of flutters down. So I was like, I was trying.
Good. I hope it does. Of course, now
can it wait till I get home first?
No.
Damn it.
Of course, everyone but Jonas is buying the hook, line, and sinker. Jonas doesn't fully know that they are playing castles, but he suspects.
Oh yeah.
So that's not good. But it's what we would expect, right? When they walked into that room, when I saw Jonas there, I'm like, okay, he's not buying it. I remember that the first time. I'm just like,
There's no way you fool him.
You're not getting over on him.
No.
Like you gave up that right at the Traveler's Rest.
And my note just ties in with this, so let me just read it real fast. Even Reynolds seems to believe them.
Yeah, because he wants to. I bet.
Yeah, exactly. He wants them to be stupid and slow and stuff like that, because then they're going to be easier to kill.
And he's also so stupid he doesn't realize that if they're stupid, how much stupider is he then?
Exactly.
With the Traveler's Rest, like if you almost want them to be good after the Traveler's Rest would be my thought. But if he's so dumb that he doesn't see that, like, oh, cool, they're all idiots. Okay, but then that means idiots bested you.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. And not just bested you; they bested you without guns.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. In front of everyone.
Yeah.
Also, clock check again. Now, Reaping Day is almost a month away. Still, is almost a month away. So we are inside a month.
Do you take that as almost a month as like under 30 days? Or do you take that as like 33 days away.
No, he says it's almost a month away.
Yeah.
So
almost a month.
I would say if it's over, you'd say it's over a month away still.
Yeah.
Like if it's 33 days, that's over a month away. But if it's 28 days, it's almost a month away.
It's funny because I've used that phrase. It's almost a month away when it's like 34 days away, 33 days away.
Yeah, to me that's a distinction. If it's almost, that's less.
Yeah, I saw your note. I was going to talk to you about that. I'm like, that's kind of interesting.
Versus,
I've used that phrase before.
Yeah, if it's like 34 days, and in my mind that's over a month away. Like,
see, I say over a month away when it's like a month and a half. So there's like a distinction between the two. Where it's like it's almost a month away is a few days plus a month, or a few days under a month.
Yeah,
it's like a 10-day period right there where it can be, or if it is exactly, except for that one where it's exactly a month away.
For me, I'm very very literal.
That's
so
interesting.
Yeah, indeed. So subchapter 8.
Last subchapter for us today. Roland and Cuthbert head back to the barquet along the drop. No counting today due to the rain and gray skies. Cuthbert's good humor was almost entirely restored. He asked Roland if he saw them. They swallowed the whole honey and bought it. Roland says yes, he saw. Cuthbert asks what their next move is. Roland says to count and wait. The next move is theirs, talking about the townspeople and the coffin hunters and everything. Cuthbert's good cheer collapsed in a puff. He found himself holding back a flood of recrimination, all of which is surrounding two basic ideas. That Roland was shirking his duty so he could continue to see Susan, and more importantly, Roland had lost his wits when they and all of Midworld needed them most. Then Cuthbert started thinking of what duty was Roland really shirking. What made him sure Roland was wrong? Logic, intuition, or just shitty old catbox jealousy? Cuthbert thinks of how Jonas had ripped Deputy Dave's army when Dave had moved too soon. But life wasn't like castles, was it? He didn't know, but he knew one thing. Roland was heading for disaster, and so were all of them. Wake up, Cuthbert thought. Please, Roland, wake up before it's too late. Where'd my note go? I had a note for this one.
I don't know.
I must have accidentally deleted it. Yeah, I had a note here that tied back to something that I said earlier. I don't know how I deleted it. Cuthbert here saying that life can't be like castles, is it?
I remember your note.
I had a note here. I swear.
Oh, no, I think that one, the top one's yours. Somehow, I think I accidentally turned yours.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay, just the wrong color. I never caught the line there at the end of the section where Cuthbert doesn't think life is like castles. It goes to show how much further along Roland really is over him, gunslinger-wise. Crisis averted, but now the idea that Roland is asleep at the wheel takes over for me here. They need him. King showed us that in this chapter because we had so what I'm saying is like we had the crisis presented a few subchapters, maybe even a chapter and a half ago, that dude, we gotta move to the drop. We can't just keep fucking counting over here. We look like fucking idiots.
Yeah.
And so we averted that crisis with Bert's plan and everything, but now Bert here is like, oh well, life can't be like castles. They're not really playing us, and they're not that smart. Like it goes to show that Bert really is not as I don't know.
He's
smart.
he's further behind. I think he's
strategic. I don't know what the right word is.
I think I would say
he's
he's still more childish.
Yeah, and so it just really shows it here. And we talked about it earlier in one of the other subchapters that Bert is underestimating the coffin hunters here. He is underestimating them because he's like, yeah, we got everyone fooled. All of them bought that, but we just saw Jonas didn't fucking buy a goddamn thing.
Yeah,
he is so not buying that.
Yeah.
And he's never, like you've said it several times in this episode alone, he is never underestimating these boys again.
No, they had their one chance with
exactly.
Jonas.
And Cuthbert here is thinking that they have another chance with Jonas, and that is dangerous. But what adds to that danger is Roland needs to wake up. That last line, please, Roland, wake up before it's too late. The one person who isn't underestimating Jonas is in a coma. A walking coma.
Yeah.
So it's just like, on top of that, we have to remember that Rhea's still out there. Shit.
And Ermont. David popped in the chat, said I need to get my notifications in order. I think I'm late to the show. Yeah, we're pretty close to wrapping up. And then he also has a note. He's not underestimating the coffin hunters. He's underestimating Jonas. The other two coffin hunters are stupid.
He does make a good point that yes, it is. We saw that Reynolds did buy their list idea and everything, hook, line, and sinker. But Jonas
or DePape and Reynolds that leave a lot to be desired. So, but yes, it's underestimating Jonas. Like that could be a fatal mistake.
That absolutely could.
So my last note here, and some of it might be tactical thinking from Roland, but it's not all of it. He's 100% compromised by Susan, and it's just a matter of how bad that will cost our quartet as we move on. That's how I view it. So I've said it before a few times in this episode. I want to reach through the page and strangle Roland with this.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It drives me nuts, dude. It's like, dude, you can't be doing this right now. This is like the worst possible time to be losing yourself. So,
Eisenhower loses his head on June 4th, right before the Normandy invasion.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, come on, man.
Yeah, you can't do it. So I think that'll do it for us. I had some minor spoiler discussions, but it wasn't anything super meaningful, and we are out of time. I don't know. The more I was looking at those, even before I realized our time issue, I was kind of looking at those notes and being like, those are just like, whatever. I feel like this one, it's just so, because it is so self-contained, like I don't think there's as many spoiler. I think we have far less spoiler discussions in this book than we have the other books, because then with the other books you're actually attaching ideas to the larger series.
Yes.
And this one's so self-contained that it's like there's just not as much that like this doesn't connect to book 7 in these massive ways.
We've had a few spoiler discussions about what happens later in this book, but not, like you said, not a lot happening what happens in later books.
Yeah, so they were just minor notes that I had that we don't have time for, but also it just they weren't that great of notes. I think I was just
we
haven't
had a spoiler discussion for a few episodes. Like we got to have something.
Yeah. That'll do it for this episode though, and this book club. Like I said, this is the second to last for the year. We have episode number 21 in December, the first episode in December, because we are flip-flopping them so that we have a year-end bash roundtable for the final episode of the year. So let's go ahead and hit the outro stuff real quick. If you want to subscribe to us, you can do it on any podcasting service of your choice. You can stream us on Spotify, Amazon, Audible, any place like that, or any podcasting service of your choice. You can live stream us here at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver, as well as go back and watch old live streams if you want to do that. We have basically most of our episodes, actually. I was doing some math on that, and I'll share it in the next episode.
Okay.
It's fairly interesting, I think.
And the tease for next episode. Look at this guy.
And the next episode is a roundtable. I know it's the third episode of a month, but this one we decided to do a roundtable rather than a book club. So we will have a roundtable in a fortnight from now. So also the show notes and all things, the hub for all things Dark Tower Palaver, or darktowerpalaver.com. Then if you want to support the show, you can join us at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver, get our monthly hangouts as well as our Discord server, send Peter emojis all week long, and Ermot comments.
Oh, come on, man.
Good stuff. And then if you want to contact the show and tell us about Ermot, Peter can tell you the ways to do that.
The best way not to do that is just don't. But you can email us at show@darktowerpalaver.com. And then we're on Threads now. It's Threads and Instagram both have the same username. It's Dark Tower Palaver, all one word, no spaces. And then you can find us on Blue Sky. It's at darktowerpalaver.bsky.social. We're still on the Twitter. It's at DarkTowerPod. That's at DarkTowerPod.
And that one just irritates me because the username length, it wouldn't allow me to do Palaver.
Yeah.
So that's why I had to shorten it to Pod. And now when you read them, it's the only one that's different. And it just, good, great time. And I can't even blame Elon Musk. That was like an original.
That was before.
That was an original Twitter thing. So I get it. In the old days, it was 140 characters. So somebody had like a really long username. It pretty much ate up a chunk of your tweet if you had to like tweet at them. So I get it, but it annoys me. Go on.
And then we got our Facebook. It's facebook.com/darktowerpalaver.
Yes.
And then check out our merchandise. It's tpublic.com/users/darktowerpalaver. Get yourself a hashtag Tad is terrible sticker.
We also have an email for next episode too. So
email. It's the email. Tad's gonna write his whip. Well, all right. Oh, see, I'm out of practice.
We'll be back in a fortnight for which is on November 30th. Again, this is a 3-episode month. Then we have 2 episodes in December, and then we will kick it off into 2025, which hopefully is a big year. We got a Running Man coming out next year.
Yeah.
We got some King stuff. We'll
have a ton of Flanagan news.
We have a new King novel that's for sure coming out next year.
Gonna have we have some whole bunch of Flanagan news to cover when it happens.
Yeah, I hope so. And also, King has been tweeting. We covered it last episode about some Dark Tower and territory stuff. I do wonder, does that mean if
Oh, should we mention that?
is there a second book coming next year, and is that
Yeah.
second book going to be, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, let's mention that real fast. If anyone's still there with us, we heard that King is leaving the Twitter.
Yeah, King has left Twitter. He's on Threads now. That is
Yeah.
maybe one of the reasons that Dark Tower Palaver is now on Threads.
Yeah,
I have
if you're looking for Side King, we want people to know if
Yeah.
this is the way you hear about it. Yeah, he left Twitter, so
Yeah.
go follow him on Threads.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, we'll sign off as we always do by saying long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
Boy.
All right, everyone.
You're
Thank
the fucking worst.
Thank
God
you.
damn
Thank
it.
you all in the chat for being part of the show. I love seeing all the emojis, all the chats, all the thoughts from you guys. It's great stuff. Snake emojis definitely means
Stop.
Ermot. So,
Stop bringing up that fucking snake. I swear to God.
all right, guys. We'll see you if you were with us for Geekery Bites. We'll see you in a few minutes. If not, we'll see you in a fortnight for Roundtable 158, I think. But yeah, with whatever number it is, we'll see you then.
Bye, everyone.
See you guys.